snow had been falling since midnight. By the time they dragged me outside, it was already ankle deep. I was on my knees, thin autumn shirt, no coat, no gloves. The cold had stopped being cold about 10 minutes ago. Now it was just pressure, a slow, even squeeze across every inch of skin, like the air itself had decided I was done. Catherine stood on the heated porch in her fur coat, riding crop in one hand. She looked like she was inspecting a delivery that arrived damaged. "Apologize to Ethan," she said. "Then you can come inside." I didn't push him. He threw himself down those stairs at 4 in the morning, waited in his bed crying until someone found him, and let the house do the rest. I knew this. They knew this. Nobody cared. I didn't push him. My voice came out wrong, thin, like the words had frozen halfway up my throat. He fell by himself. Why does everyone believe him? Catherine's arm moved. The riding crop caught me across the back. Then again, a dozen times. I stopped counting after 7 because my hands had gone numb and I couldn't feel the ground anymore. Hannah appeared on the porch in her white dress and gold-rimmed glasses, carrying the thermos I had filled at 5 that morning. 3 hours of simmering, herbs I had bought with my own money, working weekends at the traditional medicine shop because some of them were too rare for the family's kitchen budget. She unscrewed the lid, looked at me, and poured the entire thing onto the ice beside my knees. Ethan is still lying in bed, and here you are, being stubborn. Her breath fogged in the cold air. If you go to his bedside and kowtow, we might forgive you. I watched the porridge steam for about 3 seconds before the snow swallowed it. Sarah came last, twin tails bouncing, pleated skirt over thermal leggings, cheeks pink from the warm villa she had just left. She kicked me in the ribs without breaking stride. "Who told you to bully little brother Ethan?" She didn't even look at me when she said it. "Just stay here and kneel." She turned to the nanny standing by the door, old Aunt June, 60-something, sad eyes, hands shaking, not from the cold. "Bring a basin of water." Aunt June brought it, ice water. She whispered something as she tipped it over my head. I think it was an apology. I couldn't hear her over the sound of my own teeth. Then a second basin, then a third. My vision went white around the edges. The courtyard shrank to a tunnel. I could still see the villa, the porch, the 3 fur coats, but everything else had gone quiet, like someone had pressed mute on the world. I lifted my eyes one last time. Ethan stood on the second-floor balcony in his pajamas and a down jacket, hot chocolate in one hand, Brittany's hand in the other. She leaned into his shoulder and looked down at me. Her lips moved. Whatever she said, Ethan laughed. One clean laugh that carried across the courtyard like a bell. I stared at him. The steam off his hot chocolate curled into the dark air and disappeared. My heart stopped. Not metaphorically. The muscle in my chest clenched once, hard, and then it was done. The last image I took with me was Ethan's smile, the mug, the steam, and the girl on his arm looking at my body in the snow, like it was something she had already forgotten. Then black, then a voice. Not mine, not anyone's I recognized. "You really want to die like this? For them?" I didn't answer. I was dead. Then I wasn't. The ceiling was cracked in 2 places. I knew because I had stared at it every morning for a year and a half. I was lying on a narrow bed, 1 blanket, 1 pillow that smelled like dust. The room was my attic. Cold in winter, boiling in summer, always too small. The digital clock on the desk blinked 6:47. I sat up. My hands were warm. My ribs didn't hurt. No whip marks on my back. I touched my face. No ice. No frozen hair stuck to my scalp. 6 months. The voice, whatever it was, had sent me back 6 months. I remembered everything. Every slap. Every stolen meal. Every time Ethan smiled at the breakfast table. And I pretended not to notice that his eggs were warm and mine weren't there. Every stock ticker that would flash across the news in the next half year. Every word Eleanor would say to me when she thought no one was listening. Every single thing they were going to do. The smell of medicinal porridge drifted up from the kitchen. I had set it to simmer 5 hours ago in this timeline for Hannah. The same porridge she had just poured onto the snow in a life that hadn't happened yet. From the other side of the kitchen door, 2 floors down, I heard her voice. "Too slow, Adrian. If you do not bring it out now, I do not want it anymore." I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. I got up. The kitchen was spotless. I had cleaned it at 4:30 this morning before the porridge started simmering. The clay pot sat on the stove, lid rattling softly. Hannah stood on the other side of the island in her white dress and glasses, bag over one shoulder, tapping her phone. I carried the pot to the island. She reached for the thermos on the counter, already unscrewing the lid, expecting me to pour. I sat down, picked up a spoon, and I ate it. The porridge was good, warm and slightly bitter from the lotus seed and dried tangerine peel. I had walked 40 minutes round trip to the herb market for those ingredients, paid for them with weekend wages from the shop, and simmered the pot since 1 in the morning. It was mine. I took another spoonful, then another. Hannah's hand froze on the thermos lid. "What are you doing?" I didn't look up. Eating. That is my porridge. You made it for me. Not anymore. Her voice climbed half an octave. Adrian, what madness has possessed you? Can you not learn from Ethan? He would never treat me like this. I finished the last spoonful, set the spoon down, picked up the clay pot with both hands, and smashed it on the marble floor. The sound was perfect, a sharp crack that echoed off every wall in the kitchen. Porridge and clay shards sprayed across the white tile like a small, satisfying explosion. Hannah jumped back. Her glasses slipped down her nose. I just smashed a pot, I said. Stop making such a fuss. You sound like a shrew. Her face went red, then white, then a shade of purple I had never seen on a medical student. You actually dare call me a shrew? Her voice was shaking. I will not speak to you for half a month. Suit yourself, shrew. She grabbed her bag, turned on one heel, and stormed out. I heard her mumbling about being late for class as the front door slammed. Ethan appeared in the doorway. School uniform, bag on one shoulder, expression preloaded with concern. The kid had rehearsed this face in a mirror. I was sure of it. Second sister, did Adrian make you angry? He looked at the mess on the floor, then at me. Adrian, you should apologize. You are always so clumsy. What if she is late because of you? I looked at him, really looked at him. Soft hands, clean nails. Servants brought his breakfast to his room every morning while I ate whatever was left in the fridge, if anything was left at all. Since you care so much about Hannah, you should cook for her tomorrow morning. His rehearsed face flickered, just for a second. Then the mask was back. Even if you are dissatisfied with me, you do not have to get physical, right? That is right, I said. I do look down on you. I shoved him aside with one arm. He stumbled backward, hit the hallway wall, and slid to the floor clutching a knee that was not injured. The performance was instant, flawless. He'd been doing this since he was 6 years old. Sarah came down the stairs like a small natural disaster. Twin tails, pleated skirt, face twisted with rage. Adrian, you actually dared to push Ethan. She raised her hand. I caught her wrist. She weighed about as much as one of the bags Hannah carried to class. Grandpa Sully had taught me sanda boxing since I was 8 years old. Sarah had spent those years playing video games. This was never going to be a fair fight. I twisted her arm to the side and shoved her into the staircase railing. She hit it with her hip and yelped, "Stay away from me!" I walked up the stairs. Behind me, Ethan was already on the floor doing his best impression of a kicked puppy, and Sarah was rubbing her wrist with her mouth hanging open. Ethan reached for Sarah's arm, his voice dripping with sweetness. Third sister, Adrian might just be in a bad mood. He winced, touching his perfectly healthy knee. Since he has bullied me, he should feel better now. It is probably because I did something wrong. Sarah stared up the staircase where Adrian had disappeared. Her fist was clenched at her side. He is just itching for a beating, she muttered. I will deal with him when we get to school. The Audi Q7 was already warming up in the driveway. Ethan and Sarah climbed in. Through the car window, Sarah's lip curled as she glanced back at the villa. Lowly thing. It seems I was right to make him run to school by himself. The attic was the same as it had always been. A single bed, a single desk, a wooden chair with one leg shorter than the others. The floorboards creaked when I crossed them. On the desk, a yellow sticky note with the corner curling up. I picked it up, my handwriting. 3 months old, from a version of me who still thought love could be earned. Catherine likes the Seamaster series. 20,000 yuan. Save 700 a week, working the phone repair shop, 7 to 11 weeknights. 16,780 yuan in 6 months. Almost enough. Below that, Hannah's stomach hurts. Work at the traditional medicine shop on weekends. Cook kanji. Earn money for the watch and the herbs. Below that, Sarah likes shooting games and King of Glory. Play with her 11 at night to 1 in the morning. Then study code until 3. Hack the back end. Bump her win rate. I had been sleeping 2 hours a night to fund gifts for women who poured ice water on my head. I tore the note in half, then quarters, then strips, then shreds. The pieces drifted into the wastebasket like confetti at a funeral nobody attended. In the bathroom, I found a pair of kitchen scissors. The mirror showed a boy with shaggy, greasy hair hanging past his ears, hollow cheeks, dark circles under his eyes from months of blood donations. I grabbed a fistful and cut, then another, then another. The hair fell into the sink in clumps. When I was done, the cut was jagged and short and clean. The boy in the mirror looked different, not better. Just done pretending. Under my bed, in a box I had shoved behind a broken suitcase, I found the voice recorder. Small, black, cheap. My boss at the phone repair shop had given it to me last year. along with a used phone. He was the only person outside the orphanage who had ever given me anything without expecting me to bleed for it. I pressed the power button. The red light blinked once. I put it in my pocket. Eleanor was in the foyer when I came downstairs. Late 40s, expensive dress, sunglasses pushed up into her hair, 3 shopping bags on the console table. She had been out since 6, buying new clothes. Not for me. She looked up from her phone and frowned. "Did you oversleep again? Your elder sister and Ethan have already gone to school." Her tone was the one she used for contractors who showed up late. "What are you doing staying home and idling?" "No car was assigned to me," I said, flat, no emotion. "I run to school. I've been running for a year and a half." She blinked. "Why are you running? Did the family not assign you a car? You are acting so pitiful." "Because no one assigned me a car, and I have not received living expenses in 6 months. Only tuition." She waved one hand like she was swatting a fly. "He even learned how to lie. I should not have let your father bring you back in the first place." Behind her, Aunt June spoke up. The old nanny's voice was quiet but steady. "Madam, young Master Adrian really does run to school every day. Third Miss and young Master Ethan always leave early in the car." Eleanor did not turn around. She picked up 2 of the shopping bags and headed for the stairs. "Take these up to Ethan's room," she told Aunt June. "Make sure the blue jacket is hung properly. New clothes for Ethan. Not a coat, not a bus fare, not a single glance back at her own son standing in the foyer with a jagged haircut and a voice recorder in his pocket." I walked past her, through the front door, into the cold morning air. I didn't flinch. The jog took 22 minutes. I had been doing it every school day for 18 months, while the Audi drove past me, carrying Ethan and Sarah and whatever friend they had collected that week. Today, my lungs burned from the cold, but my legs felt stronger than they had in months. The porridge was already working. My porridge. High Ridge Academy sat behind a wrought iron gate, flanked by stone pillars. The kind of school where the parking lot had more luxury cars than the local dealership, and the tuition cost more than most families earned in a year. Ethan was waiting at the gate, notebook in one hand, pen poised. Student Council Vice President. Brittany stood beside him in her school uniform and black stockings, phone raised like a weapon. "Adrian, late." Ethan's pen moved across the page without looking up. 2 points deducted. Brittany tilted her phone toward me. "He stinks. Ethan, how can you have a brother like that? He truly embarrasses you." I walked past them, expressionless. The voice recorder was warm in my pocket, already running. I had turned it on in the foyer before walking past Eleanor. "Adrian, stop!" Brittany's voice followed me up the stone steps. What was that look? I didn't stop. I didn't turn. I climbed the steps to the classroom building and passed through the double doors into the hallway. The trap was set. The recording pen was running. In the next 4 days, a teacher named Mr. Reeves would call me orphan trash in front of the whole class, the same way he had done 3 times in my last life. This time, I would have it on tape. I kept walking. The hallway was empty. My footsteps echoed off the tile. In my pocket, the recorder's red light blinked once, twice, steady as a heartbeat. I had 6 months of their future in my head, a voice recorder in my pocket, and nothing left to lose. The boy who wrote sticky notes about buying them watches was dead. He died in the snow, staring at a cup of hot chocolate on a balcony. I was what came back. Ethan was already waiting at the gate. He had the attendance notebook in one hand, and that rehearsed look of concern on his face, the one he wore every time a teacher was watching. "Adrian," he called, loud enough for the crowd to hear. "Carry my bag to the desk, then go buy me 2 bottles of water and a sandwich for Brittany." Same script, same voice, same soft hands that had never carried anything heavier than a phone case. In my last life, I would have taken the bag without a word. I would have jogged to the convenience store. I would have set the sandwich on his desk like a waiter. I picked up his backpack by one strap and threw it over the school gate into the bushes. Brittany's phone came up. She was already filming, lips twitching between a smirk and a gasp. Ethan's face cycled through 3 emotions in 2 seconds. Shock, fury, then the teary-eyed puppy act he saved for an audience. "He bullied me," Ethan whimpered, turning to the small crowd gathering behind us. "I just asked him to help." A bag came flying back from the bushes and hit him square in the chest. A girl's voice, cool and a little amused, followed it. "Whose bag is this?" She stepped through the gate, ink-black hair past her shoulders, cat-shaped pupils, a student council badge pinned perfectly straight. "Are you guys bullying a classmate?" Victoria. In my last life, I barely knew her name. I was too busy being invisible to notice anyone who was not holding a whip. She looked at Ethan. "Don't lie. That boy who looks like a gust of wind could blow him over is bullying you?" Ethan opened his mouth. She cut him off without raising her voice. "Keep your young master temper in check. Don't put on an act in front of me." He grabbed Brittany's arm and left. Victoria turned to me. She smelled like sweet peaches. I filed that away and walked past her toward the building. She kept pace. We were 15 minutes late. The homeroom teacher, a decent man named Garrison, started in on me before I reached my desk. 20 times this month. What exactly do you intend to do? I looked at him. Teacher, I am an orphan. I work every night until past midnight. Is it wrong for me just to want to attend school? The room went quiet. Garrison's jaw loosened. He stepped aside without another word. Mr. Reeves did not step aside. The English teacher walked to the front of the aisle, looked me up and down like I was something stuck to his shoe, and let it fly. An orphan still coming to school? How vain. His voice carried to every corner. Last place in every exam. Even if he goes to school, he is still trash. The dregs of society. He would be better off dropping out and working directly. Coming to our school is truly a disgrace to us. Victoria's head turned. Ethan smiled from the third row. Brittany covered her mouth with her hand, delighted. I sat down. The recording pen in my pocket had been running since the foyer. Every syllable of that speech was already mine. Mr. Reeves reached for my collar. I slapped his hand away. As a teacher, you have no ethics at all. Victoria stood. Teacher, could you please step out? Please do not disturb us while we are writing our test papers. Reeves looked at her, looked at the student council badge, and slithered back to the doorway. I pulled the math exam toward me and started writing. 58 minutes. I finished every problem on the paper, using answers I had already memorized from a life that had not happened yet. Garrison checked the first page, then the second. His eyebrows climbed higher with each line. These are all correct. I handed him the paper, walked out, and went straight to the computer lab. The recording pen connected to my phone in 4 seconds. I converted the file, uploaded it to the school internal forum under the title, High Ridge English Teacher Calls Orphan Student Trash, and sent a copy to every teacher's email address, including the principal's. The message under the audio was one sentence: take action publicly today, or this file goes to every parent in the donor group by dinner. By lunch, the PA system crackled. The principal's voice, then Mr. Reeves's voice, played back at full volume through every speaker in every hallway. The dregs of society, a disgrace to us. He would be better off dropping out. 2 security guards walked him to the front entrance before the bell rang. His face was the color of old paper. I watched from the second floor window. The gun I had loaded in phase 1 had fired. Walter was already standing behind his desk when I walked in. Kneel. I knelt. Not because I was afraid, because I needed what came next. The belt came first. 3 strikes across my back. I did not make a sound. Grandpa Sully once made me train with cracked ribs for a week. A leather belt was a massage by comparison. This family does not support useless people, Walter said, winding the belt around his fist. You embarrassed the school. You embarrassed this family. I stood up. You are Ethan's parents, not mine. Sometimes I wonder if you are his biological father, and not mine. The vein in his forehead jumped. I walked out of the study. The living room was full. Eleanor on the sofa, Hannah next to her, Sarah eating cherries and tossing the stems at Ethan, who sat cross-legged like a prince. They were planning Ethan's birthday party, 3 days away. Sarah was bragging about a surprise gift. Today was my birthday. Nobody mentioned it. I walked toward the stairs without greeting any of them. Walter followed me in. Ill-mannered, he spat. You walk past your mother and your sisters and you say nothing? I turned around. I said what I needed to say in the study. His hand found the ashtray on the coffee table. Crystal, heavy, 4 sharp corners, decorative. The kind of thing rich people kept on marble surfaces to prove they could afford ugly things. He threw it. The corner hit my left forearm and split the skin to the bone. I heard the crack before I felt the pain. Blood ran down my wrist and dripped onto the marble in a line so clean it looked drawn. Hannah jumped up. She had a first aid kit in her hands before anyone else moved. It is a small injury, she said, kneeling next to me. Let me bandage it. A small injury? I looked at her. If I gave you a small injury like this, would you want it? She did not answer. Her fingers were shaking on the clasp of the kit. Something crossed her face. Not guilt, not yet, but the muscle memory of a year of porridge bowls she had never thanked me for. I pulled out my phone and dialed 120. Eleanor's hand came up. Don't say such things, she whispered. It makes mommy feel bad. I held the bleeding arm out, not waving it, just holding it in the light the way you hold a receipt. Consider this blood and this flesh my repayment for the debt of being born and raised by you. We are done. The room was quiet. Sarah's cherry froze halfway to her mouth. Ethan's eyes were wide. Walter stood behind me with the belt still wrapped around his fist and no idea what to do with his hands. Eleanor turned her face away. The ambulance crew came through the front door. 4 of them. The lead medic looked at the room. Marble floors, crystal chandelier, a bleeding teenager, and a family arranged around him like furniture, and walked straight to Ethan. Are you the patient? Him, Ethan said, pointing at me like I was a stain. They cleaned the wound, wrapped it, and helped me onto the stretcher. stretcher. Eleanor followed us to the door. "Let me ride with you," she said. I looked at her for exactly 1 second. No, the doors closed. The ambulance pulled away. I pulled out my phone on the stretcher and called Ethan. "You owe me 18,000 yuan for 6 months of breakfast. Pay it by morning." Silence. Then his voice, smaller than I had ever heard it. I do not have. Call your eldest sister. She has the money. You have 3 hours." I hung up. Ethan stood in the empty living room with his phone against his ear. His hands were damp. The old Adrian would never have called. The old Adrian would never have said the word "oh." He dialed Catherine. "Big sister, Adrian wants some money. I do not have any to give him, so could you transfer some to him?" He called it breakfast money. He said Adrian was threatening to post about it on the school forum. He did not mention the amount. He did not mention the blood on the marble. Sarah trotted over to him and patted his shoulder. "Little brother, you are too kind. He should know who he is supposed to listen to in this family." Ethan smiled at her. The smile did not reach his eyes. 22 stitches, 1 bone fragment removed. The doctor worked without speaking until the last suture, then looked at me the way people look at stray dogs they wish they could take home. "Eat less soy sauce so you will not scar. Change the gauze every 2 days. Come back in 2 weeks for removal." I nodded. "Is anyone picking you up?" "No," he sighed. I walked out in a hospital sweatshirt with my arm in a sling. My phone buzzed. "Catherine, the 18,000 you wanted, I have already transferred it to your bank card. Do not cause trouble for Ethan again, and do not cause trouble for the family outside." Her voice was the same temperature as the hospital hallway. I let her finish. "It was not trouble. It was 6 months of breakfast I cooked for him every morning, and you still owe me 13 more years of meals." She hung up first. 18,000 yuan, plus the 20,000 I had saved from the phone shop and the medicine shop. 38,000 total, enough to leave. I was looking for water when I heard the slap. The door was half open. Inside, a private room. A woman in a hospital gown, tall, beautiful once, gaunt now, was standing over Victoria. The student council badge was gone. Victoria wore a light purple dress, white socks, canvas shoes. She looked younger without the armor. "Do you know what you got on this math test?" The woman's voice could have peeled paint. 140. You are a disgrace to me. Do you not know that if you are not outstanding, your father will abandon us?" Victoria held out a small cup of pills. "Mom, please take your medicine. You can hit me, but please just take the medicine." Mrs. Hayes slapped the cup out of her hand. Pills scattered across the floor. "Neil, I am not taking it. I am not sick at all." A nurse came in with a syringe. Mrs. Hayes fought for 3 seconds, then went limp against the pillow. The room settled into the hum of the heart monitor. Victoria stood in the middle of the room. Her cheek was red. Her eyes were dry. She was not crying. She was doing something harder than crying. She was holding perfectly still so the world would not see her shake. Then she saw me. I took a half step back. She followed me into the corridor, pulling the door shut behind her. "Could you please not tell anyone about what happened today? I am not a gossip. I will take what happened today to my grave." She looked at my arm in the sling. "What happened to your arm?" I reached into the sweatshirt pocket with my good hand. The ointment jar was still there. Small brown glass. Grandpa Linwood's recipe. I had been carrying it for 3 years because bruises were just part of living in that house. I held it out to her. "Same thing as your face." Her hand closed around the jar. Her fingers were cold. She smelled like sweet peaches again. Up close, in the corridor light, her pupils really did look like a cat's. Wide, dark, reading everything. "Could your injury have been caused by your family too?" I did not answer. I did not need to. We stood there for a moment. 2 kids with wounds from the people who were supposed to protect them. She did not ask anything else. I did not offer anything else. But I noticed that the corridor did not feel quite as cold as it had a minute ago. Victoria came back carrying something small in both hands. A chocolate cake the size of her palm, dusted with cocoa powder, sitting on a paper napkin. "I bought this for my mother." She set it on the bedside table. She did not want it. I looked at the cake, then at her. She was still in the purple dress and canvas shoes, the emerald clover pendant catching the fluorescent light. She noticed my bandaged arm and touched the gauze with 2 fingers. Barely any pressure at all. "Does it hurt?" "I am used to it." She did not push. She just pulled a finger biscuit from her bag, stuck it upright in the center of the cake like a candle, and said, "Wishing you peace and good health in the new year." "Blow it out, Your Majesty." I blew out the biscuit candle that had never been lit. We split the cake without talking. It was the first birthday anyone had acknowledged in 18 years. The chocolate was cheap and a little too sweet, and I remember every crumb. A Bentley honked from the parking circle below. Victoria stood, smoothed her dress, and walked to the door. She turned back once. "See you tomorrow." The door clicked shut. I sat on the edge of the hospital bed for a long time, holding the empty napkin. I checked into a hotel near school. The mattress was soft. I was not used to soft. My phone buzzed, a video call from a number I had not seen in months. I picked up and two faces filled the screen, crowded so close their foreheads overlapped. Grandpa Linwood and Grandpa Sully on a borrowed phone, the camera shaking because neither of them could hold it steady. Behind them, I could hear voices. The women from the elder care home pushing each other for a turn at the screen. Happy birthday, child. Grandpa Linwood's eyes were wet. Are you eating? Are they treating you well? I tucked my left arm behind my back, where the camera could not reach it, smiled. I am great. My grades are excellent. My sisters are wonderful to me. Every word was a lie. I told them I would bring them to the city when I made it. They said they would not come. They would not know what to do in a big place. An old woman behind them grabbed the phone and asked if I had a girlfriend yet. Grandpa Sully snatched it back and told her to mind her business. I hung up, lay in the dark with my eyes open. Those two old men raised me on herb gardens and boxing drills and borrowed phones. They were the only parents I ever had. Grace stepped back from the canvas and wiped her hands on her smock. The painting showed a boy, 16 or 17, lying face up in the snow in front of a villa with lit windows. His eyes were open, his lips were blue. Her roommate, Zhu Lily, leaned over her shoulder. Who is that? My twin brother. Grace's voice was flat. I have never met him. I have been sending him gifts for 15 years. I do not know if he received a single one. Then why paint him dying? Because I keep dreaming it. She set the brush down. Every night for a week. The same snow, the same villa, the same boy who looks like me. I am going to ask Teacher Gao for a week off after tomorrow's exam. I need to find him. Zhu Lily did not argue. She picked up her phone. I will get you that week off. Next morning, Mr. Reeves stomped into the principal's office, demanding my expulsion for cheating. Ethan followed with his rehearsed testimony. The principal said nothing. He turned his monitor around. My recording was already playing. Reeves heard his own voice calling me orphan trash and went pale. You recorded me? I backed up everything, I said. Every news outlet in the city has a scheduled email for Friday night. The principal fired him on the spot. Reeves stood there with his mouth opening and closing like a fish pulled out of water. Security walked him out. Then the family arrived. Walter, Eleanor, Catherine, summoned by the cheating accusation. Catherine crossed the room in 4 strides and slapped me across the face. The sound was louder than Reeves's firing. Who do you think you are? Her voice cut across the room. You have brought shame on this family. I caught the sting in my jaw, looked at her, looked at Walter, looked at Eleanor, who stood by the door with her purse clutched to her chest like a shield. Then I pushed Catherine against the wall, not hard, just enough that she had to brace herself with one hand. Her eyes went wide. I am an orphan in my own household, I said. My registration lists me as head of my own family. I have no father, I have no mother. You have no right to stand here and lecture me. My phone came out next. The second recording, Sarah and Ethan from 3 months ago, her voice sharp and clear. You score higher than Ethan one more time, and I will make your life a living hell. Ethan's voice underneath, laughing. The principal's face went still. He looked at Ethan. Ethan apologized on the school PA system that afternoon. His voice cracked on every word. The whole school heard it. Walter paid the 20,000 yuan in compensation without a word. It was loose change to him. He just wanted the headlines gone. Catherine watched me walk out of the principal's office. I did not look back. Hannah threatened the nanny until she got my old address. She climbed the stairs to the attic where I had lived for 18 months. The room was empty. One cardboard box sat by the door. Books and loose clothes. Nothing else. No posters, no photos, no personal items. Just the belongings of someone who had never been allowed to settle in. She opened the trash can, found a crumpled sticky note, smoothed it out. It read, eldest sister likes the Seamaster watch. 20,000 yuan, save for it. Second sister needs stomach kanji every morning. Do not forget. Third sister needs her gaming win rate fixed. Learn to code. Hannah's eyes filled. She read it twice. Then her mouth tightened and she balled the note back up. He is doing this on purpose, she whispered, pretending to be pitiful so we feel guilty. She dropped the note in the trash, wiped her eyes, and walked downstairs to order an expensive gift online. The guilt would go away if she spent enough money on it. That was what she told herself. I arrived at the gate of a villa community I had no business standing in front of. 850 yuan a month, including utilities. Henry's idea of a favor. A motorcycle growled up the lane. Maya swung off it and pulled her helmet free. Tight red leather, long legs, dark hair tangled from the wind. She looked me up and down like she was appraising a stray dog someone had dropped at her gate. You are the little brother? Hello, sister. Get on. I climbed on the back of the motorcycle and she tore through the community at a speed that made my stitches ache. The villa was enormous. 4 rooms upstairs, a gym in the basement, a kitchen bigger than my old attic. I hesitated at the door. This is too much. Maybe I should look somewhere else. If you leave, Henry will yell at me. She folded her arms. If you feel weird about it, cook. Clean. Use the gym. Earn your stay. I looked at her face under the overhead light. The concealer was thick, but it could not hide the hollows. Liver key deficiency. Chronic fatigue. Henry's complexion was not much better. He worked until dawn every night and ate instant noodles for dinner. Both of them needed fixing. Grandpa Linwood's recipes were still in my notebook. Deal, I said. I will cook. Henry burst through the front door at midnight, holding a laptop like it was a trophy. He had been at the co-working space all day, writing code for some new investment scheme a girl with a sweet voice had sold him on. I took the contract from his hands, read it in 30 seconds. The investor bears all debts. 5% profit share. Strawberries grafted onto winter melon vines with guaranteed 100 times return. Henry, what? This is a scam. His face fell. The 14th failed investment. 30 million yuan of his parents' money. Gone on schemes exactly like this one. They had cut his credit cards, called him useless, threatened him with an arranged marriage if he did not grow up. I pulled a bank card from my pocket. 50,000 yuan. Every cent I had left after the 20,000 I was keeping for stock trades. I will be your investor this time, I said. But we are not buying strawberry vines. We are starting a real company. The printed sheet went on the coffee table next. 6 months of stock moves. Product launch dates for every major tech company. A one-page concept for an AR and AI gaming platform. Henry stared at the sheet. How do you know all of this? I pay attention. He did not ask again. He did not need to. Every prediction I had made in the past 2 weeks had come true. He picked up the sheet, read it 3 times, and nodded. What do we call it? Aurora Technologies. You are the CEO. Your name on everything. My name on nothing. Henry's eyes went bright. For the first time in 2 years, somebody had believed in him. He shook my hand so hard it rattled the stitches in my arm. Aurora Technologies was born on a glass coffee table at midnight, funded by an orphan's savings and a rich kid's last ounce of hope. 3 days later, lunch break. Brittany crossed the classroom to Victoria's desk and leaned in close enough that the whole room could hear. Still hanging around the orphanage, boy? You really are not picky, are you? He is the trash I threw away and you picked up like a treasure. Victoria stood, backhanded Brittany across the left cheek, then returned across the right. 2 clean hits. Brittany shrieked and stumbled backward into Ethan's desk. The cafeteria went silent. Ethan stood up. This is a school. How could you hit someone? I stepped between them, looked at Tyler, who was already opening his mouth. You, I said. You are his watchdog. Bark one more time and I will cut your tongue out. Tyler's mouth closed. I turned to Ethan. Apologize to Victoria. You have 60 seconds. Ethan looked at Tyler. Tyler looked at the floor. Nobody was coming to help. I am sorry, Ethan muttered. Louder. I am sorry. I walked back to my desk. Victoria was already seated, smoothing her blazer like nothing had happened. Her eyes met mine for half a second. She did not smile. She did not need to. After last period, I found an envelope in my desk drawer. 15,000 yuan in cash and a note in neat handwriting. Could you please tutor me? I really want to know your secret to getting a perfect score. Here is the tuition fee for 1 week. I found Victoria at her locker, held up the envelope. 7 to 8 every evening, I said. I accept. She nodded once, turned back to her locker so I could not see her face, but her ears had gone red. She smelled like peaches. I filed that away and kept walking. Sarah sat on the edge of her bed with her phone pressed to her ear. The room was dark except for the vanity lamp. I need 2 legs broken, she said. The address is High Ridge Academy, senior class 3. His name is Adrian. He leaves school at 6 every day. The voice on the other end repeated the price. I do not care what it costs. Her nails dug into the pink comforter. Break his legs. I want him crawling at the birthday party. She hung up, set the phone on the nightstand, pulled the blanket over her shoulders and turned off the lamp. 3 blocks away, in Henry's villa, I was asleep with a notebook of medicinal recipes on the nightstand and Aurora Technologies on my mind. I did not know about the phone call. I did not know about Marcus. I did not know that in 3 days, a van full of men would be waiting outside the school gates. The audience knows. I did not yet. They came out of the alley like they had rehearsed it. 1, 2, 3 more behind them. 5 men, pipes and bricks. The one in front had his hands wrapped like a fighter, lean, maybe 22, eyes locked on me like I owed him money. Break his legs, he told them, just like that, like ordering takeout. I shoved Victoria behind me. Run, call the police. She did not run. The first one swung a pipe at my head. I ducked under it, drove my palm straight into his nose, and felt cartilage crunch. Sanda, rule 1, hit the center of the face and everything else freezes. He dropped. The second came from my left. Low kick to the inside of his knee. His leg folded sideways and he screamed. The third caught me across the shoulder with a steel rod. My bad arm. White light behind my eyes. I took the hit, pivoted, slammed my elbow into his jaw. He sat down on the asphalt like someone had cut his strings. Then I heard it. A crack. Not a bone. A brick. Victoria had picked up a construction brick from the dumpster and brought it down across the fourth man's neck. He hit the ground face first and did not get back up. She stood over him breathing hard, dust on her school blazer, and she did not apologize. The ringleader stared at me, blood on my shirt, blood on my knuckles, 4 of his men on the ground. "Who taught you to throw like that?" he muttered. I swept his legs out from under him. He hit the pavement and stayed there. Sirens. Victoria had called the police the moment the first man stepped out. 4 minutes. At the station, the officer asked me to call my parents. "I do not have parents," I said. "I am an orphan." Victoria sat across from me with a red mark on her wrist, where the brick had scraped the skin. She had not said a word about it. When the female officer let her out, she walked straight to me and pressed her forehead against my chest for 3 seconds. Then she stepped back, wiped her eyes once, and sat down in the waiting chair like nothing had happened. The ringleader refused to name his employer. He did not need to. The wire transfer that paid the gang came back from a personal account, Sarah's personal account. 10,000 yuan for 2 broken legs. That was my price. I called Henry. Henry sent Maya. 20 minutes later, a motorcycle growled into the station lot. Maya handed us both helmets. "Get on," she said. "Both of you." Victoria climbed on behind Maya. I climbed on behind Victoria. Nobody talked on the ride home. When Maya dropped Victoria at her gate, Victoria looked back once. "Who is she?" Victoria asked me. Not about Maya, about something else entirely. Then she turned and walked through her gate. Catherine adjusted the mirror and glanced at the motorcycle lane. 2 teenagers on the opposite sidewalk, a boy and a girl, walking away from the police station toward the school. The boy had a bandaged arm in a sling. He was too thin. His cheeks were hollow, and his wrists were bony enough to wrap one hand around. "That pest again," Catherine said. "I told your mother to send him back to whatever village he crawled out of." Grace did not answer. She was looking at the boy through the passenger window. She had been painting that face for 3 months. The boy in the snow. The boy who died in her dreams. "Stop the car," Catherine laughed. "We are not stopping for him." "Stop the car, Catherine. We are 5 minutes from home. Your mother is waiting. Ethan's birthday is tomorrow, and you have not even unpacked." The light turned red. Catherine slowed. Grace reached for the door handle, opened it, pulled her suitcase off the back seat, and stepped onto the boulevard. "What are you doing?" Catherine's voice went sharp. "Get back in the car." Grace shut the door, crossed the lane divider with her suitcase rolling behind her. The light turned green. Catherine honked twice, said something Grace could no longer hear, and drove away. She stopped about a step away from me. Hooded coat, big braid over one shoulder, round face, a dimple on the left side that showed even when she was not smiling. She was not smiling. "Are you Adrian?" "Yes." She looked at my sling. She looked at my face. She looked at me the way I had seen old women at the orphanage look at puppies left on the road. "I sent you gifts," she said, "every month, for 15 years. Clothes, sneakers, a game console, 3 paintings for your birthday last year. Did you get them?" Something cold went through my chest. I have never received a gift from anyone in that family. Her hands went to her mouth. No sound came out. Tears ran down her face, but she did not make a noise. She took 1 step forward, reached around me carefully to avoid the sling, and hugged me. I did not move. My arms stayed at my sides. Then I closed my eyes. Just once. 1 second. I let myself have 1 second where it was not an angle, not a strategy, not a game, just a sister, just a brother. I opened my eyes. Victoria had turned her head away to give us the moment. "I am sorry," Grace whispered. "You have nothing to be sorry for." She pulled back. Her eyes were red, but her jaw was set. "Come with me to the house. I need to see something." Sarah kicked her heels off and dropped onto the leather sofa like she owned the building. Catherine sat across from her with a glass of water. Hannah leaned against the kitchen doorway, arms folded. "You know the funniest part?" Sarah said. She crossed her legs and inspected her nails. "When he first got here, the little orphan did not even know how to use a microwave. I had to show him which button was start." Catherine said nothing. "He would eat my leftovers off the counter like a dog. I told him he was not allowed at the dining table. He just nodded." Sarah laughed. "One time, he tried to tell me what foods were good for my stomach. Me. I told him to shut up and scrub the pots." Hannah looked at her glass of water. "He slept in that attic room with no heat all winter. I turned the hot water off so we had to shower in cold. You should have seen him. He never complained. Not once." She leaned back, grinning. "That is the problem with strays. You feed them once and they think they are family." "Sarah," Hannah said quietly, "that is enough." "Why? He is not here." Behind the column at the edge of the hallway, Grace stood perfectly still. She had been listening for 2 minutes. Her suitcase was at her feet. Her hands were shaking. She stepped into the living room. Sarah looked up, mouth still open on the next sentence. Grace crossed the marble in 3 steps and slapped her across the face. The sound cracked off the walls like a pistol. Sarah's head snapped sideways. Her hand went to her cheek. Catherine's glass froze halfway to her mouth. Hannah did not move. Grace said nothing. She turned, walked out of the living room, and went up the stairs. I was in the upstairs hallway when Grace came around the corner. Her eyes were dry. Her jaw was locked. "Come with me." She pushed open the door to Ethan's bedroom, past the king-sized bed, past the trophy case, past 3 desktop computers, and a wall-mounted shoe cabinet that took up the entire left side. She opened the walk-in closet. I saw them before she did. 3 shelves, 15 years of hand-painted birthday cards arranged by year, carved wooden frames she had built in art school, tiny watercolors with my name on them in her handwriting, 3 large oil paintings propped against the back wall, still wrapped in the canvas sleeves she had shipped them in. Every gift she had ever sent me, every single one. Ethan had kept them like trophies. Grace breathed once. Then she picked up the smallest watercolor and smashed its frame against the closet wall. Glass scattered across the carpet. She picked up the next one. Smash. The next one. Smash. Carved wood splintered. Paint chips flew. She was not crying. She was not screaming. She was just destroying, steady as a metronome, 1 frame every 2 seconds, until the 3rd oil painting. She lifted it off the wall. It was a portrait of me at 16, painted from a photo she had found online. She looked at it for 1 breath, then she opened her mouth and screamed. 1 sound, long. A sound I had never heard a human being make before. Not grief, not rage. Something underneath both of those. Something that had been locked in a drawer for 18 years. She smashed the painting against the closet door frame until the stretcher bars snapped. I did not move from the doorway. This was not mine. This was hers. When she was done, the closet floor was a carpet of glass, splinters, and torn canvas. She had a cut on her palm from a piece of frame glass. Paint was smeared across both her hands. She walked past me without a word, washed her hands at the hallway sink. I watched the water run pink down the drain. Then we stood at the banister together, side by side. Below us, through the railing, the ground floor was alive with caterers setting up round tables and white linens. Eleanor was arranging name cards. Walter was shaking hands with a business partner. Catherine was directing the florist. Sarah was holding an ice pack to her cheek and checking a seating chart on her phone. Ethan's birthday party. Tomorrow, it would be the center of every conversation in this city. Grace looked at me, paint still under her nails, a bandage I had wrapped around her cut palm. I looked down at the family that had never been mine. Tomorrow, I would walk into that party. The Sue family ballroom held 60 guests, 3 caterers, and a string quartet playing something classical enough to sound expensive. Crystal chandeliers threw gold light across marble floors. The city's business elite circulated with champagne flutes and tight smiles. Every handshake a negotiation. Walter stood at the bar with an old colleague, swirling a scotch. His voice carried just enough for the 3 journalists near the pillar to catch every word. I adopted a child, and I plan to groom him to be the heir of the Sue group. To be a qualified heir, he needs a whetstone. A whetstone. That was the word he used. Like Ethan was a tool and I was the blade being sharpened. The truth was simpler. Ethan was his real son. I was the spare he could afford to break. Eleanor leaned close to him. I could read her lips from across the room. She suggested telling the guests that I was also their biological child. Walter shut her down in 1 sentence. If we acknowledge him publicly, he will get arrogant. Eleanor dropped it. She always dropped it. Catherine stood at the entrance in a black sheath dress, greeting senior partners with a handshake that lasted exactly 2 seconds. Sarah hovered near the 3-tier cake. Hannah sat at a side table near the wall, pale, 1 hand resting on her stomach. I walked through the front doors in a borrowed black suit, Grace beside me in dark blue. Behind us, Victoria, Henry, and Maya, each wearing a small gold pin on their lapel. The Zhang family crest, 3 of them, 3 pins, 3 signals that every business person in that room would read in under a second. Catherine saw the pins before she saw me. Her hand froze mid-handshake. Her eyes moved from Henry's lapel to Maya's collar to Victoria's dress. The Zhang dynasty, the family she had spent 6 months trying to court for a deal Walter promised, would earn her a seat on the Sue Group board. They had walked in on my arm. Henry grinned at the bartender across the room. "Where is the bar?" Catherine's face did the math. She did not stop us. She could not afford to insult a Zhang in front of 60 business guests. I walked past her into the ballroom without a word. The string quartet kept playing. 20 minutes in, Ethan found me at the buffet table. He was wearing a white silk shirt that probably cost more than my rent for 3 months. His hair was styled. His smile was practiced. He picked up a glass of red wine and walked over like we were old friends. "Brother Adrian, I also wish you a happy birthday." His voice was pitched for the guests at the nearest table. "In this family, I am probably the only one who cares about you." I said nothing. Picked up an unopened champagne bottle from the ice bucket. His smile widened. He leaned closer, dropping the volume so only I could hear. "Oh, right. Dad also said that I am the future heir of the Sue family, and you are just an accessory to me." Then he lifted the glass of red wine above his own head and poured it down his face. Wine ran over his forehead, into his eyes, down his white silk shirt. He staggered back, knocked into a server, and screamed. "He attacked me! Adrian attacked me!" The room turned. 60 heads. Every journalist, every business partner Walter had been performing for all evening. I looked at the champagne bottle in my hand. The foil was still on. The cork was still in, so I shook it. One hard shake, thumbed the foil off, aimed. The cork popped and a jet of champagne sprayed directly into Ethan's eyes. He clawed at his face, stumbling sideways. I grabbed a pitcher of Pilsner from a server's tray and poured it over his head while he screamed. Then I picked up a half-empty wine bottle from the table. One short, controlled swing. The base of the bottle connected with the side of Ethan's skull. Glass cracked. Ethan dropped. Blood on white silk. Blood on marble. I grabbed him by the collar and pulled him up to eye level. His eyes were wide, unfocused, wine and blood running down his neck. "Didn't you always say I bullied you?" My voice was flat, almost amused. "Now I will satisfy you. Are you happy?" He stared. I pulled him closer. "You are wrong. It is not that they will not let me go. It is that I will not let them go." I dropped him. He crumpled on the marble like something boneless. The room was silent except for the string quartet, which had stopped mid-note. Catherine and Sarah converged from opposite sides of the ballroom. Sarah swung her hand at my face. I caught her wrist midair without looking. "Orphanage trash," she hissed. "You will pay for this." I slapped her once. Open palm, released her wrist. She stumbled back into Catherine's arms. Catherine reached for her phone. "I am calling the police." I pulled my phone out, opened an audio file, 3 minutes long, tapped play. Sarah's voice filled the ballroom, her own voice, 3 weeks old, crystal clear. "Break his legs. I want him crawling at the party." The recording kept going, her voice naming the price, her voice giving my address, her voice laughing about how I would look on crutches at my own birthday. 60 guests, 3 journalists, not a single person moved. Grace stepped up beside me. Henry, Victoria, and Maya formed a line behind us. 4 people who had nothing to do with the Sue family, standing behind the boy the Sue family had thrown away. The recording ended. I pocketed the phone. "Anyone still want to call the police?" Nobody answered. Walter stayed at the bar. Eleanor was frozen near the cake table, one hand over her mouth. Ethan was upstairs being patched up. Sarah had been pulled into a side room by Catherine. The band started playing again because Walter had told them to. Business as usual. I danced one slow song with Victoria on the main floor. She did not ask about the blood. Halfway through the second song, I excused myself to the restroom. The second floor guest hallway was dim. Wall sconces, long shadows. I had been here before. In my last life, this hallway was where everything fell apart. Brittany was already waiting. She stepped out from behind a column with a smile that could sell real estate. Honeyed voice. Leaned in to wipe something invisible off my lapel. Her hand lingered. Then she pressed her body against mine. "Adrian," her voice dropped. "I know you like me. I will say yes to you today." I put my hand on her shoulder and pushed her off. She lunged forward again, pressing harder. I sidestepped and kicked her away. She stumbled, caught herself on the wall, and screamed. "Help! Someone help!" Tyler, already crouched behind a potted plant at the end of the hall, camera in hand, red light on. 3 guests rounded the corner, including Catherine. Brittany was crying, dress disarrayed, finger pointed at me. I held my hands up, calm. "Check the surveillance camera in this hallway. It will clear everything up." Catherine's eyes narrowed. "Get the footage." I smiled, walked to the potted plant, reached behind it, lifted a tiny black pinhole camera off the wall, the size of a pencil eraser, painted to match the trim. I had planted it there 1 hour before the banquet, because in my last life, this was the exact hallway where Brittany pulled the same trick. I walked the camera to a tablet mounted on the wall console and played the footage, the full sequence. Brittany positioning herself, the lean, the press, the manufactured scream, every second of it from an angle Tyler's camera could never have caught. Then Tyler's camera was seized. Both feeds compared side by side. Catherine watched. The three guests watched Catherine watching. I slapped Brittany once across the face. She covered her cheek and ran. Tyler stood mute, camera gone, shoulders hunched. He walked out of the hallway like a man attending his own funeral. I straightened my jacket and went back downstairs. Eleanor was standing in the center of the dance floor, alone, makeup compromised, mascara beginning to leak down her cheeks. The string quartet was still playing because nobody had told them to stop. She walked toward me. Adrian, her voice cracked. Why? Why do you reject me? Are you upset that I accidentally lost you back then? I looked at her. In another life, I would have cried. In another life, I would have begged her to say that one more time so I could pretend it was an apology. But I had already died once in that other life, and the woman standing in front of me was the same woman who had stood at the kitchen counter while a maid served me cold leftovers on the floor. Mother, my voice was quiet, flat. Every guest within 30 feet could hear it in the silence. I have never blamed you for losing me. I blame you for what you did when I came back. She blinked, did not understand. So I told her. When I was 8 years old, Ethan poured juice on the piano keys. He pointed at me. You took the rattan cane out of the umbrella stand. I paused. Let the silence carry. You told me to hold out my palms. I did, because I had been told to. The ballroom was listening now, not pretending otherwise, not looking away. 43 times. I counted everyone inside my head because I was 8, and I did not know what else to do. Then you locked me in the laundry room without dinner for 2 days because my palms were too swollen to play the piano you wanted me to practice on. Eleanor's face crumbled. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. I know you have been suffering, she finally managed, her voice thin. But Ethan is suffering just as much. I cannot abandon him because of you. I looked at her for 3 seconds, counted them the way I counted lashes. You wanted him to be loved. I needed to be fed. I turned and walked toward the door. Behind me, Sarah lunged for Grace's wrist to stop her from following. Maya stepped between them, one hand, one word. Don't! Sarah's fingers uncurled. Grace walked past her without looking back. Grace caught up to me on the front steps. Adrian, her voice was breaking. Can I have your contact information? I stopped, turned around. She was standing in the doorway with paint still under her nails from yesterday's closet destruction and tears running down her face. All the gifts I sent you, 15 years of them, every birthday, every holiday. Ethan took every single one. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I am sorry I was late. I opened my phone, added her, typed the contact name, fourth sister. She showed me her phone, opened the transfer screen, typed the amount, hit send, 100,000 yuan, into my account, just like that. It is not much, she said. Please accept it. I will feel guilty if you do not. I looked at the number on my screen. 100,000 yuan from a sister I had met 48 hours ago. A sister who smashed 15 years of stolen paintings with her bare hands. A sister who slapped the girl who bragged about starving me. I will grow it, I said. She nodded. That was enough. Henry, Victoria, and Maya came out behind us. 5 people on the front steps of the Su family villa, walking away from a building that still had a string quartet playing for an audience that had just watched its own mythology collapse. Inside, the band kept playing. Nobody was dancing. 3 days later, Grace moved out of the Su villa. Her new place was a small apartment near her art studio. 1 bedroom, unpacked boxes in every corner, a canvas leaning against the wall. I visited on the 2nd day. She made instant noodles and apologized for the mess. I told her the noodles were fine. We ate hot pot that evening at a place down the street. She ordered too much. I let her. 2 weeks after the banquet, Henry and I pushed Aurora Technologies' first consumer product live, Perfect Lover, an AI companion app. You told it your type, your preferences, your schedule, and it built you a partner who texted you good morning and asked about your day. The voice actors were professional. The dialogue engine was Henry's best work. The hidden upgrade was a feature called Good Morning Kiss, 1 yuan per use. Most users hit it before breakfast. 1 million downloads on day 1. Net profit hit 3 million yuan within the first week. My share was over $1 million. I sold the short-term stock positions I had been running since phase 3. Bought in at 120,000. Cashed out at 360,000. Combined that with the app profits. Reinvested 1,300,000 yuan into a 3-month basket of positions I remembered from my last life. Positions that would triple. The money was moving. The plan was moving. I resumed Sanda training at the gym. Put on weight. Topped my class at High Ridge on every quiz Victoria threw at me. Months passed. Hannah doubled over in her medical school dormitory dormitory on a Tuesday morning. The pain had been getting worse for 3 weeks. Her friend Beth drove her to Capital City Medical Hospital. CT scan, pathology report. The doctor closed the door before speaking. Hannah sat on the examination table with the gown still on and the word on the paper in front of her. Cancer, early stage, stomach. She called Catherine first. Catherine was on the phone with a Zhang family intermediary, losing the deal she had been chasing for 6 months. The deal that had walked into the banquet on Adrian's arm and walked right back out. Second sister, what is wrong? Catherine's voice was clipped, distracted. Big sister, I am in the hospital. I am sick. Are you not a doctor at the medical school yourself? Go find a doctor to treat your illness first. The line went dead. Hannah did not call Eleanor. She stared at the wall. Beth sat beside her, holding her hand. Beth was the one who said it. Why do you not ask Adrian to keep you company? He brought you that medicinal porridge every morning for over a year. If you had not said he was your brother, I would have thought he was one of your suitors. Hannah closed her eyes. She remembered. Every morning for 13 months, the thermos on her desk, the herbs she could smell through the lid, the porridge she had stopped accepting 3 weeks before the banquet because Sarah told her it was beneath her dignity. The stomach pain had started the week she stopped drinking it. She did not call Adrian. She sat in that examination room and stared at the wall until Beth drove her home. 3 weeks after the banquet, Grace and I sat across from each other at a hot pot restaurant near her studio. 2 broths. She ordered dry chili dipping powder. I mixed millet peppers, minced garlic, beef sauce, vinegar, oyster sauce, and sesame oil. She was talking about a commission she had taken for a gaming company. Something about character design. I was nodding, dipping lamb into the broth, and looking over her shoulder. Corner booth, 60 feet away. Partial view through the steam. Walter, in a suit. Not a business dinner suit, a date suit. Jacket open, no tie, top button undone. Across from him, holding his hand under the table, a woman in her late 40s. She looked like Eleanor. Same bone structure, same chin, but younger, softer. Laughing at something Walter had just said. Eleanor's half-sister, Diana, the aunt I had seen at 3 family functions over the years and never thought twice about. The woman who had been holding Walter's hand for 19 years while Eleanor arranged seating charts for birthday parties upstairs. I picked up my phone, tilted it under the table, raised it just enough. 1 photograph. Walter did not see. Diana kept laughing. I pocketed the phone and went back to my lamb. Grace looked up. Everything okay? Perfect, I said. I meant the dipping sauce. I also meant the photograph. Phase 6 was going to start with that picture. Victoria's birthday fell on a Tuesday. I knew that before she asked. I had known it for 10 years, technically, because in my last life, she had spent her 18th birthday studying alone in her dorm while I was getting yelled at for not mopping a hallway fast enough. This time, she asked me 3 days early, standing outside the school gate with her bag over one shoulder and her voice a little quieter than normal. There is a romance film playing at the Grand on Tuesday afternoon. Would you come with me? I said yes before she finished the sentence. Tuesday afternoon, the Grand, 2nd floor. I bought popcorn, 2 colas, and a silver bracelet with a small star pendant that I had carved a cherry blossom into the night before. The bracelet cost me almost nothing. The carving cost me 2 hours and a sliced thumb. She would never know which one mattered more. Victoria was wearing a light blue dress with a white cardigan over her shoulders and her hair past her waist. She waved at me from the escalator landing, and her bracelet jingled against the railing when she raised her arm. I handed her the popcorn. She handed me her smile. Fair trade. The theater was dark and the film was forgettable. Some rich guy chasing some poor girl through a European city. I do not remember the title. I remember Victoria's hand finding mine in the dark, her fingers cold from the air conditioning, and the way she squeezed once without looking at me. I squeezed back. After the credits, the corridor outside the theater was empty. Everyone else had left during the mid-credits scene. Victoria stopped walking, turned, looked up at me with those dark eyes that always saw too much. She kissed me. No warning, no buildup. She just stepped forward, put her hands on my collar, stood on her toes, and pressed her lips against mine. She tasted like caramel popcorn and cola, and something I had not let myself want for a very long time. I kissed her back. 2 seconds, maybe 3, long enough to mean it. Then I stepped back. Her hands were still on my collar. Her cheeks were flushed. Her eyes were wide and a little scared, like she had just jumped off a cliff and was waiting to see if the water would catch her. Wait for me, please. My voice came out quieter than I planned. There is one more thing I have to finish first. She searched my face. I do not know what she found, but she nodded, squeezed my hand once, let go. I will wait, she said. She walked toward the lobby alone. I watched her until she turned the corner and her cardigan disappeared behind the escalator wall. Then I went to the second-floor restroom. I ran the tap. Cold water on both wrists. The restroom was empty, white tile, one row of urinals, one row of sinks. The vent above the urinals was a long horizontal grill that ran through the shared wall into the disabled stall on the other side. I had not picked this theater for the film. In my last life, Walter and Diana met here every other Tuesday. The disabled stall on the second floor was private, had no camera, and locked from inside. Walter had checked the blueprints years ago. What he had not checked was the ventilation layout. The grill above the urinals connected directly to the ceiling vent in that stall. Sound carried through it like a phone on speaker. I turned off the tap, stood by the urinals, waited. 2 minutes, 3. Then I heard the lock click on the other side of the wall. Walter's voice first, low, clipped, the way he talked when he thought no one was listening. Then a woman's voice, softer, honeyed, Diana. I took out my phone, hit record, set it on the edge of the sink with the microphone facing the vent. Their voices came through the grill like they were standing next to me. Ethan's grades are slipping again. Diana's heel scuffed on tile. The tutor is useless, but that does not matter now. What matters is that boy, Adrian. Walter said my name, the way people say a bill they forgot to pay. He is getting too close to the Zhang family. If Catherine finds out why, she will start asking questions we cannot answer. And if your wife ever sees us together, she will not. Walter's voice was flat. She has never looked closely at anything in 20 years. Then we deal with Adrian before he becomes a real problem. Diana's tone shifted, harder, the honey gone. I have someone, an orphan, terminal cancer. He needs $5 million for his sister's organ transplant. He has nothing to lose and no family to investigate afterward. My hand on the sink did not move. A truck accident, Diana continued. Adrian walks home from school on the south side of campus. The road bends. No cameras on that stretch. The driver clips him at speed. It looks like a traffic accident. The driver gets his $5 million. His sister gets her transplant. We get our problem solved. Walter was quiet for 4 seconds. I counted. $5 million is nothing, he said. Then we agree? I will think about it. But the timeline is soon, before the Zhang family deal closes. Diana laughed. Quiet, private. The kind of laugh that happens between two people who have been sharing a secret for 19 years. Our son will inherit everything, darling. Ethan has always been ours. The word ours hung in the tile and fluorescent air like a knife. I picked up my phone, stopped the recording. 22 minutes and 14 seconds. I heard Diana leave the stall first, heels clicking, then silence. 2 minutes later, Walter's heavier step. The door opened and closed. I washed my hands, dried them, put the phone in my pocket, walked out of the restroom on the opposite side of the corridor. The surveillance camera above the exit caught me leaving the men's room. It did not catch Walter leaving the disabled stall. 2 different doors, 2 different angles. I took a cab home alone. Henry's villa, 11 at night. Maya was sitting cross-legged on the kitchen island in a tank top and joggers, drinking something amber from a wine glass. 6 or 7 bottles stood behind her on the counter like a small army. She looked up when I walked in. You're back early. How was the movie? Forgettable. And Victoria? Not forgettable. Maya swirled her glass. Sit down. I have a question. I poured myself water, sat across from her. Would you pretend to be my boyfriend for a week? She said it with the same tone someone uses to ask for the salt. I want to see if Henry reacts. If he does, I know he has feelings. If he does not, I give up. I drank my water. No, why not? Because I could just ask him. She stared at me for 3 seconds. Then she laughed. Not politely. A real laugh. The kind where her head tipped back and she nearly knocked over her wine. Fine. You're no fun. She wiped her eyes. So what did you actually do tonight that has you looking like you just swallowed a bomb? I opened my laptop. The recording was 22 minutes. I trimmed it to 4, the 4 minutes that mattered. Diana naming the truck driver. Walter saying $5 million is nothing. Diana calling Ethan our son. Walter agreeing to the timeline. I encrypted the file, created a burner email on a VPN, typed Catherine's personal email address into the recipient line. Maya had stopped drinking. She was watching the screen over my shoulder. That is your father's voice, she said. Yes. And that woman is your aunt. Also, yes. They are planning to kill you. They are planning to try. Maya set her glass down. Who are you sending it to? Catherine. She is the eldest. She is the most calculating. She will not confront Walter. She will verify first. And the first thing she will verify is whether Ethan is actually Walter's biological son with Diana. And once she has proof, then she will call me because she will need something from me and I will have a price. I hit send. 2:14 in the morning. Closed the laptop. Went to bed. Catherine's phone vibrated on her nightstand at 2:15 in the morning. She opened one eye, reached for it. An email from an address she did not recognize. One attachment, no subject line, no text. She sat up. played the first 30 seconds. Then she played it again. She called Hannah. The phone rang 4 times. Hannah picked up from a hospital ward where the fluorescent lights never turned off and the sheets smelled like disinfectant. She had been discharged 2 days ago, but she was back for a follow-up scan. The cancer was still early stage. The treatment plan was still forming. Sleep was not happening. "Big sister, it is 2 in the morning. I know what time it is. Listen." Catherine put the phone on speaker, pressed play. The recording filled the hospital room. Walter's voice, then Diana's. The truck driver, the 5 million, the timeline. "Our son, Ethan, has always been ours." Hannah sat up in the hospital bed with the gown bunching at her waist. Her hands went still on the blanket. "Play it again," she whispered. Catherine played it again. 20 seconds of silence after it ended. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them breathed loudly enough to hear. Hannah broke first. Her voice was raw. "That is Dad, and that is Aunt Diana. I would know their voices anywhere." "I know." "Then Ethan is not adopted. He is their biological son. He has always been their biological son." Catherine closed her eyes. 19 years. The family she had built her career around. The company she had sacrificed her 20s to manage. The inheritance she had been promised since she was 15. All of it balanced on the assumption that Walter's loyalties ran in one direction. They did not. They never had. "We need a paternity test," Hannah said. 2 days later, the Sue family villa, 8 in the morning. Catherine arranged everything. A private medical team with a mobile examination vehicle parked in the driveway. "Routine annual checkup," she told the family. "Comprehensive blood work. Everyone participates. No exceptions." Walter came downstairs in cotton pajamas, irritated about being woken before 9. Eleanor followed in a cashmere robe. Sarah sat in the examination chair and complained the entire time the needle was in her arm. "We had a checkup last month," Sarah muttered. "This is pointless." "Preventive care is never pointless," Catherine said without looking at her. Ethan sat quietly. The nurse drew his blood. He did not flinch. Walter rolled up his sleeve and looked at his phone while the vial filled. Catherine watched the nurse label 2 specific vials. She memorized the codes. After the team packed up and the vehicle pulled out of the driveway, she went to the kitchen, retrieved the 2 vials from the designated cooler bag where the nurse had placed all samples, and slipped them into her purse. Nobody noticed. Nobody ever noticed Catherine's hands. Hannah drove the vials across town. The lab was in the medical district, 3 blocks from the university hospital. Not the family doctor, not any facility connected to the Sue name. A private testing lab that a senior classmate from her medical program had access to. She paid cash, submitted the samples under neutral codes, filled out no paperwork with real names. "Junior," the senior student said from behind his mask, "I had to apply for special equipment access to run this. You owe me a meal." Hannah did not smile. "How long?" 3 to 6 hours. Expedited." She drove back to the villa, sat in her parked car in the driveway for 2 hours before going inside. She could not make her legs move. The steering wheel was the only thing her hands trusted. The result came at 3:47 in the afternoon. Hannah was back in the lab parking lot. She had driven there an hour early and sat with the engine off. When her phone buzzed, she opened the attachment before she could talk herself out of it. Paternity probability, 99.99%. Walter and Ethan, father and son, biological. She read it 3 times. The numbers did not change. She put the phone face down on the passenger seat. Then she put her forehead on the steering wheel and sat there for an hour. She did not cry. She was past that. The family she had defended for 10 years. The brother she had helped raise. The father she had trusted to divide the inheritance fairly. All of it was theater. All of it was Diana. She drove back. Catherine was on the phone when Hannah walked in. 3 calls running simultaneously. A medical equipment distributor, a logistics company, a banker she had met at a conference 2 years ago. She was not grieving. She was working. The moment Hannah had texted her the result that morning, Catherine had done the math. If Ethan was Walter's biological son with Diana, then Walter's inheritance plan was simple. Everything flows to Ethan. The daughters were stepping stones. The company Catherine had been promised since she was 15 was never hers. It was always going to be Ethan's. So Catherine started poaching Walter's 3 biggest medical equipment clients, the distribution contracts she had personally negotiated, the relationships she had built with her own name. If the inheritance ladder was hollow, she would take the rungs with her. Hannah set the lab report on the desk. Catherine glanced at it, poured herself a whiskey at 4 in the afternoon. 99.99%, Hannah said. "I can read. What do we do?" Catherine sipped the whiskey. "We need Adrian." Hannah's face tightened. "He will not pick up. Then we text him, and we wait." Catherine typed, 3 p.m. tomorrow. The coffee shop on the boulevard. "We need to talk." She sent it. Adrian did not reply. The coffee shop on the boulevard, 2:35 in the afternoon. Catherine arrived first, navy coat, low heels. She took the window table because she always took the window table. She ordered sparkling water and did not drink it. Hannah arrived 10 minutes later in a gray hospital sweater she had been wearing for 3 days. She sat next to Catherine, did not order anything, put her hands flat on the table and stared at them. 3 o'clock. Adrian did not walk through the door. 3:05. Catherine checked her phone. 3:10. Hannah refilled her water glass from the carafe the waiter had left. 3:15. Catherine sent a second text, then a third. No reply. 3:20. Hannah leaned toward Catherine and whispered, "Maybe he is not coming." Catherine did not answer. I was across the street, standing outside a bookshop, watching them through the coffee shop's floor-to-ceiling windows. Maya had told me to arrive 25 minutes late. Do not apologize. Take twice as long as you need to order. The point is to make her feel it. The point was simple. When I was 8 years old, Catherine made me kneel in the snow outside the villa for 40 minutes, waiting for an apology she never gave. I was returning the gesture, with interest. 3:25. I crossed the street, pushed through the door, did not look at the window table, walked to the counter. The barista had a pleasant smile and a green apron. "1 Americano, please. Hot or iced?" "Hot." She rang it up. I paid, stood at the counter and watched the espresso machine do its work. Steam, drip, pour. No rush. Catherine watched me from the window seat. I could feel her stare on the side of my face, like sunlight through a magnifying glass. I did not turn. The Americano arrived in a white ceramic mug. I carried it to their table, set it down, sat in the chair across from them, took off my coat, folded it on the seat next to me, slowly, picked up the mug, sipped. The coffee was bitter and exactly right. Catherine's jaw was tight. Hannah's hands had not moved from the table. Both of them were looking at me like I was a locked door and they had lost the key. I set the mug down, leaned back. "Go ahead." Catherine opened her mouth, closed it. For the first time in her career, the woman who had negotiated with boardrooms full of men twice her age could not find a sentence to start with. The silence was delicious. I sipped my Americano again and waited for them to figure out how to ask me for something they had spent 18 years making sure I would never want to give. Catherine opened with 1 million. She said it the way she said everything, like a contract clause she had already reviewed. Navy coat pressed flat, untouched sparkling water sweating on the table between us. The DNA report in a manila folder beside her elbow. Hannah next to her in that hospital sweater she had been wearing for 3 days straight. Gold-rimmed glasses smudged, hands flat on the table. 1 million yuan, Catherine said, in exchange for your silence on the paternity result and your cooperation on the equipment pricing agreement. We can also discuss your future business needs. I have contacts. I sipped my Americano, bitter. I still hated coffee. 1 million. I set the cup down. That is an interesting number. Let me offer you a different one. Catherine's jaw tightened a fraction. 3 million yuan, wired today, plus 30% equity in your medical equipment company. The room went very quiet. Catherine did not blink, but her hand on the cup moved. One finger lifted off the glass, then pressed back down. That was her tell. I had watched it across 100 family dinners in my last life. I do not have a medical equipment company. You registered it 11 days ago under a holding entity linked to your personal account in Shenzhen. I leaned back. You called your 3 largest equipment suppliers within an hour of receiving that recording. Maya traced the calls. 2 days later, you started poaching Walter's clients at below market rates. The company is real. The clients are real. And 30% is a generous ask, Catherine, because the alternative is that the paternity result reaches the board before your next quarterly review. She stared at me for 6 seconds. I counted. Fine, she said. 3 million, 30%, 20 seconds. That was how long it took her to do the math and realize that 30% of a growing company was still cheaper than the public collapse of the Sioux Group succession plan. She was not sentimental. I respected that. Wire it by 6 this evening, I said. She nodded once. Hannah had not spoken. She had been watching me the way a patient watches a surgeon explain something terminal. Now she leaned forward. Her voice cracked before the first word was out. Adrian, she swallowed. The porridge recipe, the one you made for me when I was still in school. The doctors said my condition. They said if I had that formula again, it could slow the growth. Maybe stop it. I looked at her. Hospital sweater bunching at her wrists. Dark circles so deep they looked painted on. Gold-rimmed glasses that needed cleaning. She was dying. I knew that. She knew I knew that. The recipe is not available. Her fingers curled on the table. Please, I am asking you as your sister. You are not my sister. The words came out flat. Not angry, just true. You stopped being my sister the morning you poured my porridge on the frozen ground and told me I did not deserve to eat at the same table as you. 8 years of that, Hannah. 8 winters. You poured it on the ice every single time. She started crying. Not the loud kind. The kind where the tears just fall and the person does not wipe them because they know they have no right to. Catherine sat very still. I finished my coffee, stood, picked up my coat. Wire it by 6, I said again. I walked out of the coffee shop into the afternoon sun. The wire arrived at 4:11. Tyler was waiting behind the flower shop sign. He stepped out the second I cleared the door. Phone up. Screen turned toward me. 2 photos. Me and Victoria at the Grand. Tuesday afternoon, walking out of the lobby. These go to the school board tonight unless you apologize to Ethan on camera. His voice was shaking. He was trying to sound tough, but his hands gave him away. Ethan said if I get the apology, he will let me back into the group. So just cooperate, okay? It will be quick. I took the phone out of his hand. He yelped. Hey, that is my... I swiped to the camera roll. The 2 photos. No cloud backup icon. No auto sync badge. I deleted both. Checked the recently deleted folder. Emptied it. Checked the messaging apps for sent copies. Nothing. Tyler was not smart enough to back them up. I handed the phone back. Run, I said. He ran. 2 minutes later, I was walking toward the subway. Ethan stepped out of a side alley with 2 friends behind him. One held a beer bottle. The other had his hands in his pockets. Ethan was in the center, school uniform blazer open, that round face arranged into the smile he saved for teachers and cameras. It has been a while, brother. He leaned against the wall. I heard you have been busy, meeting our sisters, spending money you did not earn, walking around like you matter. I stopped, hands in my coat pockets, waited. You think you are clever. Ethan took a step closer. But you know what is funny? You always were easy to frame. His smile widened. Do you remember the pen? Catherine's fountain pen? The one worth over $1,000,000? I remembered. I stole it. Ethan said it like a party trick. I took it from her desk, put it in your bag, and told her I saw you do it. She slapped you twice. They locked you in the cellar for 2 days. No food, no water. And the pen was in my desk drawer the whole time. He laughed. Want to know the best part? Nobody ever checked. Something in my chest closed like a door. The cellar. I was 13. The slaps landed before Catherine even asked me to explain. The cellar door locked from the outside. 2 days. No light. I counted the hours by the traffic sounds above me until the sounds stopped making sense. When they let me out, nobody apologized. Nobody checked the drawer. The pen reappeared in Catherine's study a month later, and no one said a word. Say that again, I said. Ethan grinned. I stole the pen. I framed you. And I would do it my left elbow caught his wrist. The Sanda strike was clean. Rotation from the hip. Contact point on the radial bone. His wrist folded the wrong way. For the cellar. He screamed. My right leg swept low. Shin to the side of his kneecap. His right knee buckled inward. For the slaps. He hit the concrete. My right fist came down on his collarbone. Hammer fist. Shoulder width drop. The bone gave. For the 2 days without food. The 2 friends ran before Ethan's back touched the ground. I heard their sneakers slapping wet concrete and then nothing. Ethan was curled on the alley floor, mouth open, no sound coming out. His left wrist was hanging at an angle. His right leg was folded under him. His collarbone had a visible dip under the blazer fabric. I wiped my knuckles on a handkerchief, folded it, put it back in my pocket. I walked to the alley mouth and stood in the gray light. I had texted Eleanor the location 3 minutes ago. She would come. She always came for Ethan. Eleanor's Mercedes pulled up 4 minutes later. The driver did not even put it in park. She was out of the passenger side before the car stopped rocking, heels cracking on concrete, bag swinging, already screaming Ethan's name. She found him at the back of the alley, fell to her knees, his head in her lap, blood from his ear soaking into her dress. She called his name 3 times. He did not respond. She pulled out her phone, called a private ambulance. Then she looked up, saw me standing at the alley mouth. She walked toward me. Her heels echoed off the brick. Her mascara was already running. Her hand came up and she slapped me across the face, hard enough to turn my head. I did not flinch. You are a monster. Her voice broke on the last word. How could you do this to your own brother? He is not my brother. I looked at her. You know that. I am your mother. You have not been my mother for 10 years, I said. Quiet, no theater. And you do not deserve the word now. Eleanor's face crumpled, not anger anymore, something worse. She opened her mouth to say something else, but a car door slammed behind her. Catherine's car pulled up behind the Mercedes. Catherine got out first, then Hannah. They walked to the alley mouth. Catherine looked past me at Ethan on the ground. Her face did not change. Hannah looked at Eleanor. Eleanor was shaking, mascara down both cheeks, one hand still raised from the slap. He is lying, Eleanor said. Her voice was high and thin. He has always been like this. Violent, ungrateful. I raised him, and this is what he... Mother. Hannah's voice was quiet, barely above the traffic. What he is telling you is true. Eleanor stopped. The 43 lashes, Hannah said. When we were 8, Catherine used the bamboo switch on his palms because he spilled ink on her homework. 43, I counted, and the cellar. He was locked in the cellar for 2 days because Ethan stole Catherine's pen and put it in his bag. He was 13, no food, no water. No one checked. Eleanor turned on Hannah. How dare you? After everything I have done for this family, how dare you side with him? Hannah did not step back. Because it happened, Mother. I was there. The private ambulance turned the corner. 2 paramedics jogged in with a stretcher. They loaded Ethan. Eleanor climbed in after him, one hand gripping the stretcher rail, the other pressing her phone to her ear. Catherine stood at the alley mouth, looked at me, said nothing. Then she turned and walked back to her car. Hannah walked over to me, stopped 4 feet away, close enough to speak, not close enough to touch. Her hospital sweater was wrinkled from the car ride. Her glasses were fogged at the edges. Her eyes were red and swollen, but dry now. The crying was done. I am sorry, she said. 2 words, no excuse behind them, no explanation, no request. I nodded once. I did not move closer. She did not move closer. We stood like that for 3 seconds that felt like 30, and then she turned and walked to Catherine's car. The door closed. The engine started. The silver sedan pulled away. I stood in the alley mouth for another minute. My knuckles ached. The traffic sounds came back one at a time. Horns, engines, a bus braking at the stop down the block. Then I walked to the subway. Grace was at a corner table when I arrived, willow branches hanging low enough to brush the teapot, the river behind her catching the last of the sun. She was sitting across from a woman I did not recognize. Mid-20s, long dark hair in a loose ponytail, sundress, bright expression. Grace saw me and stood up so fast her chair scraped the stone. She hugged me. I let her. Her arms were tighter than usual, and she held on for 3 full seconds before pulling back and wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. Sit, she said. I sat. She poured my tea. Her hands were shaking. The cup overflowed onto the saucer. She set the pot down and pressed both palms flat on the table. Sorry, she said. I'm nervous. It is fine. She slid an envelope across the table. I opened it. Inside was a deed. A small apartment, 2 bedrooms, 5 kilometers from my school. Adrian Sue and Grace Sue, both names on the title. I bought it 3 days after the banquet, she said, with my savings and the money you gave me that I turned into $360,000. It is not big, but it is ours. I looked at the deed for a long time. The paper was warm from her hands. Thank you, I said, quiet. I meant it more than any word I had said all day. Grace smiled, the kind of smile that uses the whole face. Come for dinner every Friday. I will cook. Deal. The woman across the table leaned forward. I am Shulily. She extended her hand. I shook it. Firm grip, quick release. Grace has been talking about you for weeks. I was starting to think she made you up. Grace elbowed her. Shulily grinned. She reached into her bag and pulled out a cream-colored envelope with a gold seal, slid it toward me. The Internet Industry Summit, 1 week from now. My uncle organizes it. 200 founders, 40 angel investors, and a man named Mr. Vance who controls a fund worth more than most companies on this river combined. She tapped the envelope. The company that pitches well walks away with at least 10 million yuan in committed capital. This invitation is yours. I picked it up. The card inside was heavy stock, embossed lettering. Thank you, Sister Lily. She waved one hand. Thank your sister. She would not stop talking about your business until I gave in. Grace looked at the river and pretended she had not heard. Shulily finished her tea, hugged Grace, shook my hand again, and left. The lanterns along the stone path blinked on one by one as the sky turned from orange to blue. Grace and I sat. The river moved slow. A barge drifted past with its running lights on. I opened my phone and turned the screen toward her. 3 transfers, executed 15 minutes ago while I was on the subway. 1 million yuan to the Evergreen Elder Care Home Renovation Fund, my grandparents. The building was falling apart and the heating had not worked since March. 1 million yuan to the Aurora Technologies development account, the company Henry and I were building, the one that was going to change everything. 1 million yuan to the Lily Charitable Fund, anonymous donor, for the next 4 rounds of chemotherapy that Marcus could not afford for his sister. Grace read the names, read the amounts, did not say anything for a long time. Then she reached across the table and squeezed my wrist. Not hard, just enough to say what she could not. I closed my phone, watched the river. The barge was gone. The lanterns threw soft circles on the water. Somewhere across town, Ethan was in an ambulance. Eleanor was holding his hand. Hannah was in Catherine's car, staring at nothing. Catherine was recalculating. But here, at this table, under the willow, my sister poured me another cup of tea, and this time, her hands did not shake. I drank it. It was still warm. 3 days after Ethan collapsed in that alley, Victoria made one phone call. The same gang, the same 5 men who had come for me outside the school in Phase 4, the ones Marcus used to run with. Victoria doubled the price, named Sarah, told them where and when. Sarah stepped out the villa gate at 2 in the afternoon, headed for the spa, heels clicking on the stone path like she owned every brick beneath them. 5 men in dark hoodies came from behind the hedges. She did not make it past the second column. They gagged her first, then the sticks. 2 broken legs. Same thing she had ordered done to me, down to the method. The symmetry was was so clean it could have been poetry. Security found her 40 minutes later, unconscious by the garden wall. Victoria had unplugged the cameras in that corner before the call. She was already back inside the villa, watching a cooking show by the time the ambulance arrived. Sarah woke up in the orthopedic wing. Same hospital, same floor as Ethan, 2 beds apart. The Sue family was filling that ward like a loyalty program. Eleanor stood at Walter's study door. She had been pounding for 11 minutes. Her knuckles were raw. The sound echoed through the empty hallway like someone knocking on a coffin. "Open this door." Her voice cracked on the 3rd word. "Walter, open this door." Inside, Walter sat behind his desk with his phone pressed to his ear. Diana's voice hummed through the speaker, calm and precise, walking him through the truck driver's payment schedule. He did not look up. He did not move. He waited for Eleanor to tire herself out the way he always did, the way he had for 20 years. Eleanor's fists stopped, her forehead pressed against the wood. She slid down the mahogany until she was sitting on the hallway floor, knees to her chest, palms flat against the door she had paid for with her own inheritance. The door never opened. Hannah found Eleanor between Sarah's room and Ethan's room. The corridor smelled like antiseptic and old coffee. A nurse pushed a cart past them without looking up. Eleanor's mascara had dried in 2 dark lines down her cheeks. She was leaning against the railing, staring at the wall like it owed her money. Hannah stopped 4 feet away, pulled her cardigan tighter around her shoulders. She looked thinner than last month. Her skin had the pallor of someone whose body was eating itself from the inside. 4 words, flat, no inflection, no preamble. "Ethan is Walter's son." Eleanor's knees buckled. Her hand shot out and caught the railing. Her mouth opened, but the sound that came out was not a word. It was the noise a person makes when the floor drops out and the fall has no bottom. Hannah stepped forward, steadied Eleanor's elbow, held her upright for 3 seconds, just long enough for the legs to lock again. Then Hannah let go, turned, walked to the elevator, pressed the button for the oncology floor. She had a chemo intake appointment in 15 minutes, and she was not going to be late for it. The internet summit gave me 10 minutes. I used 8. I stood at the podium in a borrowed gray suit, listed in the program as Brother Jung of Aurora Technologies. Henry sat to my right as nominal CEO, hands folded, rehearsed smile locked in place. The audience was 200 founders, investors, and reporters. I was the youngest person on the stage by at least 15 years. I opened with the numbers. 1 million downloads in 4 months, 3 million yuan net revenue, 1.3 million reinvested in 3-month instruments, now sitting at 4.7 million. The slide changed. Next product, an AI productivity tool that drafts speeches, reports, and board memos from a single prompt. Corporate market, subscription model, no competitors within 12 months. Live demo, I said. I typed 1 line into the interface. 90 seconds later, the screen displayed a 5-page board memo on photovoltaic market restructuring, complete with tables, citations, and an executive summary. The audience shifted in their seats. Someone in the 3rd row leaned forward so fast his pen rolled off his lap. Mr. Vance watched from the center chair, 60 years old, gray suit, dry eyes that had seen 400 pitches and funded maybe 12. He asked for the term sheet before I finished the last slide. I handed it across the table. He read it in under a minute, set it down, tapped the page once with his index finger. 10 million yuan for 10%. His voice carried the calm of a man who had made this decision before breakfast. Valuation, 100 million. Signed tonight. I signed. Henry co-signed. The room applauded. A photographer from the business section got the handshake. 8 minutes, 10 million yuan. I was 18 years old, and my company was worth more than Catherine's entire secret medical equipment venture. Catherine intercepted me in the corridor before I reached the elevators. She was standing in front of the glass wall, arms crossed, chin lifted. 3 business reporters with phones up lingered near the water station 6 meters behind her. She had been in the 2nd row during the pitch. I had seen her face change 3 times in 8 minutes, from contempt to confusion to something that looked a lot like fear. 50 million, she said. Her voice was smooth, corporate, practiced. I will buy your software outright. 50 million yuan, and you can keep working on whatever you like under the Sue Group umbrella. Henry, behind me, did not miss a beat. It is worth 100, he adjusted his cuff. We just got valued by someone who actually reads term sheets. Catherine's jaw tightened. I watched her recalculate in real time behind her eyes. The number did not work. The leverage did not work. The family name did not work. For the first time since I had known her, Catherine Sue had nothing left to offer. I looked at her, my eldest sister, the one who had slapped me across the face at the villa and handed me a riding crop like I was livestock, the one who had taken my 3 million and my 30% and still thought she was doing me a favor. A good dog does not block the way, I said. Flat. No heat, no emphasis. The same tone I would use to tell a stranger the elevator was on the left. I walked past her. Henry followed. Behind us, 3 reporters wrote it down. By morning, the line was in every business page in the city. 3 days after the summit, Henry's car. 5 of us inside. I sat in the back passenger seat with Victoria on my left, Grace in the middle, Maya behind the driver, Henry at the wheel. We were driving from Grace's apartment to the Sioux Villa to pick up the last of her things. I had known the intersection for 2 weeks. The recording from Walter and Diana's conversation named the street, the time, the direction the truck would come from. I had spent 3 nights working out the seating. Strongest bodies on the impact side. Henry driving, arms braced on the wheel. Maya behind him, belt tight, phone ready. Grace in the center where the frame was thickest. Victoria next to me. I put myself on the window side. The truck came from the left at 50 kilometers per hour. A cargo hauler with no company markings. The driver's face was blank, resigned. A man who had already made peace with what came next. Henry saw it a half second before impact, yanked the wheel right, not enough. The car spun twice, glass everywhere. My head hit the window frame and the world went white, then black, then white again. The seatbelt caught my ribs like a fist. Concussion. 2 broken ribs. Lacerations across my left arm and shoulder. Victoria, sprained wrist. Grace, shoulder strain. Henry, fractured left hand from the steering column. Maya, unhurt. She had her phone open and the emergency number dialed before the truck even made contact. Police in 4 minutes. Ambulances in 6. I called Ethan from the hospital bed that night. Kept my voice weak. Let the words drag like a man counting his own breaths. Ethan, it is Adrian. There was an accident. He picked up on the second ring. Too fast. His voice came through bright and eager, the way a dog hears the food bowl hit the floor. How bad is it? He could not keep the grin out of his tone. I heard a truck hit someone near the bridge. He knew. He already knew. I let the silence stretch. Coughed once, slow and wet. Played the wounded animal. Lucky to be alive, I whispered. Ethan laughed. Short, smug, involuntary. The sound of a boy who thinks he has won something. Then he caught himself, remembered he was supposed to be the concerned brother. Well, get some rest. He hung up. I stared at the ceiling for exactly 5 seconds. Then I texted the full transcript to Maya. She was sitting in the chair by the door, notepad in her lap, pen already moving. The audio recording from Walter and Diana's original conversation sat in my coat pocket on the side table, intact, undamaged. The truck had not managed to destroy the one thing that mattered. Ethan had just admitted on a recorded line that he knew the truck was coming before it hit, which meant Walter told him, which meant Walter ordered it. The trap was almost ready. It just needed one more piece. 4 days after the truck, I was on crutches, ribs strapped under a loose sweatshirt, taking slow steps down the corridor toward the pharmacy wing. I saw Marcus before he saw me. He was standing at the counter with his head in his hands. The pharmacist behind the glass was explaining, patient and tired, that the next round of chemo for his sister would be 12,000 yuan. Marcus's account had 800. His bleached hair hung in his eyes. His fists were clenched on the counter so hard the knuckles had gone white. The scar on his left cheekbone caught the fluorescent light. He looked nothing like the fighter who had swung at me outside the school. He looked like a man watching a clock run out. I walked over. My crutches clicked on the linoleum. Each step sent a spike through my ribs. Marcus looked up. His eyes went wide, then narrow, then somewhere in between, like a drowning man who does not trust the hand reaching down. I pulled out my phone, opened the Lilly Charitable Fund app, turned the screen toward him, fully funded, 4 rounds of chemo prepaid, donor line blank. Marcus's lips moved. No sound. I tapped the receipt. The name filled in. Donor, Adrian. He stared at the screen, read it twice, 3 times. His hand started shaking so hard the phone almost slipped from my grip. Then his knees hit the linoleum. A nurse looked over from the intake desk. Marcus knelt in the hospital corridor with both fists flat on the floor and his forehead almost touching the tile. The sound that came out of him was not crying. It was something older than that, something that comes from a place words do not reach. Stand up, I said. Quiet. Marcus stood. His eyes were wet and he did not wipe them. I asked him if he wanted a job. He nodded once. I took him into Lily's room. She was 11 years old, lying in a bed that was too big for her. IV drip in her left arm. Hair already gone. A coloring book open on the blanket, half finished. The crayons were lined up by color on the nightstand because someone had taught her to be neat, even when everything else was falling apart. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out a small wooden carving, a tortoise. Grandpa Sully had made it 40 years ago in his workshop. carved it from a piece of elm, sanded it until the grain shone. He had sent it to me by mail last month with a note that said, "Keep this close." The wood was dark and smooth from decades of handling. Lily took it with both hands, turned it over slowly, ran her thumb along the shell, then held it against her chest like it was the most valuable thing she had ever been given. "Are you my brother's friend?" Her voice was barely above a whisper, small, clear. The voice of someone who still believes the world might be kind. "Yes," I said. Behind me, Marcus broke for the first time in his life. I heard him turn away, heard the sleeve drag across his face, heard the single breath he let out, ragged and ugly and honest, in a way nothing else he had ever done had been. Lily smiled at the tortoise, closed her eyes, fell asleep holding it. I turned around. Marcus was standing with his back straight, jaw locked, eyes red and raw. He looked at me the way a man looks at the only person who has ever taken care of the one thing he cannot protect alone. "I will do anything," he said. I nodded, went back to my room. Maya had the notepad ready. Victoria was asleep in the chair by the window, her sprained wrist resting on her knee. The Aurora Technologies 10-million-yuan wire confirmation glowed on my laptop screen beside the bed. I picked up the pen, started writing. The trap for Walter was not going to set itself. Ethan sat on the stone bench, unwrapping a sandwich. Tyler beside him, scrolling his phone. The courtyard was half full, students in clusters on the grass, bags on the ground, nobody paying attention to the pale girl in the black hoodie crossing the lawn from the west gate. I was not there. I heard about it later from Grace's phone footage and from the security feed Marcus pulled that evening. But I am telling it the way it happened because what Brittany did next is the reason Walter showed up at my school the following morning with 4 thugs and a transfusion kit. She walked straight across the grass, hoodie pulled up, drawstrings tight, school bag on one shoulder, gaunt face, cheekbones sharper than I remembered. She had lost weight since the banquet. The girl who had tried to seduce me in a hallway and frame me for assault now looked like she had not eaten a real meal in weeks. Her family had cut her off. The engagement prospects collapsed after the video. Ethan stopped returning her calls the day after. Ethan looked up, squinted against the sun. "Why are you here?" Not concern, not surprise, just annoyance, like she was a stain on his afternoon. Brittany unzipped her bag, took out a small kitchen knife, walked the last 6 steps, and drove it into his lower abdomen before he could stand. "You ruined my life." She dropped the knife on the stone, stood there, arms at her sides, did not run, did not scream, just stood in the courtyard while Ethan fell sideways off the bench clutching his stomach, dark blood spreading between his fingers, and Tyler scrambled backwards screaming for help. 2 security guards tackled her in 40 seconds. She did not resist. She did not even close her eyes. The airlift helicopter landed on the school's track 4 minutes later. Ethan was flown to Capital City Medical. The surgeon's first call to the family was not about the wound. It was about the blood. Ethan had a rare hereditary blood disorder, the kind that needs monthly O-negative transfusions to manage. The family's hidden reason for keeping me alive all these years. I was the only O-negative carrier in the household. Walter received that call at his office. Diana was beside him. Within 30 minutes, they had contacted the family doctor, packed a transfusion kit, and called 4 men who did not ask questions. The hospital family room was small. 4 plastic chairs, a water cooler, a clock on the wall that ticked too loud. The kind of room where doctors deliver the news that changes everything. Eleanor sat in the middle chair. Catherine stood by the door with her arms folded. Hannah walked in holding a manila folder and a USB stick. Sarah was in the doorway, leaning on her crutches, watching. This part I know because Hannah told me herself 2 days later, sitting on the edge of my hospital bed, voice flat as a dial tone. She remembered every detail. She said the clock ticked 11 times between her last sentence and Eleanor's response. Hannah set the folder on Eleanor's lap. Inside, the paternity printout from the lab, date stamped, notarized. She plugged the USB into the wall-mounted tablet on the nightstand and pressed play. The 4-minute recording filled the room. Walter's voice, Diana's voice, the affair, the truck driver instructions, the payment amount, the plan to keep Adrian alive just long enough to drain his blood for Ethan. Hannah waited for the recording to finish. The room was silent, except for the water cooler humming. Then she said 5 sentences, one at a time. No emotion. "This is real. Walter has been having an affair with Aunt Diana for 19 years. Ethan is their biological son. They tried to kill Adrian. I am sorry." Eleanor looked at the printout, looked at the tablet, looked at Hannah, looked at Catherine in the doorway. "Oh," one word, then nothing. She pulled the glass of water on the side table toward herself, did not drink it, sat for 5 minutes without moving, did not cry, did not ask a single question, did not look at the printout again. Then she stood up and walked out of the family room. Her heels clicked once, twice, 3 times times down the corridor, and then silence. Catherine looked at Hannah. Hannah looked at the door. Neither followed. There was nothing left to say. The next morning, 10 in the morning, I stood on the marble walkway between the east and west classroom buildings, crutches under both arms, ribs still strapped from the truck crash 2 weeks ago. 200 students milling between buildings, heading to second period. The principal had been warned by my lawyer the night before. His instructions were simple: call 110 and stay in his office. A black sedan pulled through the security gate. The guards waved it in without a second glance. Walter donated to this school every year, funded the science wing. His name was on the auditorium plaque. They did not even check the passenger list. 4 doors opened. Walter stepped out first. Dark suit, hard face, jaw set like he was walking into a board meeting, not a school. Behind him, Diana in a long coat, eyes red and swollen. 4 men in dark suits who looked like they had never set foot on a campus in their lives, and a man in a white coat carrying a leather medical bag with a transfusion kit inside. They walked straight across the courtyard toward me. Students stepped aside. A girl near the fountain whispered something to her friend, and both of them backed up against the hedge. Walter stopped 3 meters away, looked at the crutches, looked at my face. Come to the hospital. Donate the blood. Your brother is dying. I leaned on the crutches, felt the cold metal under my palms. No, his jaw tightened. This is not a request. Good, because the answer is still no. You ungrateful bastard. His voice rose. Students flinched. I raised you. I fed you. I kept a roof over your head for 18 years, and this is how you repay me. I almost smiled. Almost. 18 years. The cellar, the lashes, the blood dross, the ashtray, the truck. That was the roof he was talking about. Walter turned his head and nodded at the 4 men. They stepped forward. The family doctor clutched his bag tighter. Marcus moved. 1 step, placed himself between me and the lead thug. The Zhang Dynasty pin glinted on his collar under the winter sun. Don't move. 2 words. The lead thug looked at the pin, looked at Marcus, looked at the other 3. They stopped. Nobody in this city wanted a problem with anyone wearing that insignia. Walter's face went dark red. He shoved past Marcus and swung at me himself. His fist came at the side of my head. I dropped the crutches. They clattered on the marble, pivoted on my good leg. The ribs screamed. I did not care. My heel connected with the center of Walter's chest. Controlled. Sanda technique. Not a brawl swing. A heel strike designed to put a man on the ground without killing him. Walter went down flat on his back on the marble. The sound of his body hitting the stone echoed off the classroom walls. 200 students went silent. Someone's phone hit the ground. Nobody picked it up. Diana dropped to her knees on the walkway, tears streaming, hands clasped in front of her chest like she was praying. Please, your brother is dying. Just a little blood. Please, Adrian, he is your brother. I looked down at her, at the red eyes, at the trembling hands, at the woman who had shared a bed with my father for 19 years while pretending to be my aunt. He is not my brother, and you are not my aunt. Catherine's car pulled up to the curb 30 seconds later. She stepped out, Hannah behind her, moving slowly, IV bruise still visible on her wrist from chemo. They walked through the courtyard, past Diana on her knees, past Walter on the marble, past the 4 thugs standing still. Catherine stopped beside me. Hannah stopped on my other side. We are with our brother, Catherine said. Not to me, to the courtyard, to the students, to the phone cameras already recording. Hannah said nothing. She just stood there, shoulder almost touching mine, and that was enough. Walter pushed himself up on one elbow, blood on his lip from biting it when he fell. He stared at his daughter standing with the son he had tried to kill. Grace's voice from behind me. I am filming this. I picked up my crutches. Marcus handed me the left one. My ribs burned. Walter tried to stand. His legs did not cooperate. He sat back down on the cold marble and stared at nothing. 7 minutes. Maya had dialed 110 at 10:07. The cruisers arrived at 10:14. 2 marked cars and 1 black unmarked sedan. A senior detective stepped out of the unmarked car. Gray hair, reading glasses on a chain around his neck. He walked past Diana, still on the marble, and stopped in front of me. Adrian, he knew my name. My lawyer had briefed him at 6 that morning. Detective, he pulled a tablet from his coat, turned the screen toward Walter, who was still sitting on the ground, pressed play. Walter's own voice filled the courtyard, the affair recording, Diana's voice answering, the truck driver instructions, the payment amount. Walter listened for 20 seconds, then he turned his head away. The detective stopped the playback. This recording, along with the medical records from a hospital ashtray injury filed 3 months ago and a notarized confession from the truck driver obtained 2 days ago, has been submitted as evidence this morning. He read Walter his rights. minutes. Slowly, clearly, every word audible across the courtyard. The handcuffs clicked on Walter's wrists right there on the school pavement, in front of 200 students and every phone camera on campus. The man who had run the family like a kingdom for 30 years knelt on the marble where his son had kicked him, hands behind his back, while an officer guided his head down. Diana stood up slowly. She was not arrested. The evidence against her was conversational, not contractual. Her turn would come later. She stepped back and watched with her arms wrapped around herself like she was cold. Walter was walked to the cruiser. 2 officers, 1 on each side. He did not look back, did not look at Diana, did not look at me. The cruiser door shut. The engine started. Eleanor's Mercedes was in the parking lot. She had arrived sometime during the kick. I did not know exactly when. She stood by the driver's side door, perfectly still, and watched the cruiser pull away with her husband inside. Her face showed nothing at all. Catherine caught me by the parking lot fence. Adrian, her voice was tactical, recalculating. We can rebuild this. The family business. I can lead it. Just give me a year. Victoria was 3 steps behind me. She leaned in, barely audible. Catherine wants something from you again. I looked at Catherine. She waited, eyes steady. I did not answer. She nodded once, turned, walked to her car, got in, drove away. Uncle Edgar's silver sedan pulled into the lot 10 minutes after the cruiser left. He stepped out, tailored coat, briefcase in one hand, walked to Eleanor, who was still standing by her car. Eleanor, no warmth, no condolence. You have to understand business. Our family cannot afford to be on Walter's wrong side. The joint venture is 30 billion yuan. I am sorry. He got back in his car, drove past the school gate, turned left toward Diana's villa. Eleanor watched the sedan disappear. Then she sat down on the parking lot curb, put her face in her hands, and cried. I saw it from the school gate. Victoria's hand was in mine. Marcus was 3 steps behind. Grace was checking her phone. I did not go to Eleanor. I did not say anything. We walked through the gate. 4 in the afternoon. Maya pushed the video live, the school forum clip, security camera footage of Walter's swing, my kick, Diana's kneel, and a 15-second cut from the affair recording with names and dates. She had edited it on the ride from High Ridge. Clean cuts, no commentary, just the footage. By 6 that evening, it had 800,000 views. The headline on every gossip feed in the city read the same way. Illegitimate heir exposed. Father arrested at school. Mistress kneels on campus. At 6, I sat in the Aurora boardroom. Maya had the camera set up on a tripod across the table. 1 take, 60 seconds. I looked into the lens. I named every member of the family. Walter, Diana, Ethan, Catherine, Hannah, Sarah, Eleanor. I named the seller they locked me in at 13, the 43 lashes at 8, the truck driver at 18, the blood transfusion demand this morning. I did not raise my voice. I did not crack. I spoke like I was reading a grocery list. The last line took 4 seconds. I have no family by that name. I am Adrian. I am alone. Maya hit stop, uploaded it to Aurora's official account. 900,000 followers from the Internet Summit press cycle. By midnight, 8 million views. I sat at the boardroom table after everyone else had gone quiet. Henry was at the office bar pouring 2 whiskeys with his fractured hand. Maya was on the couch checking the next day's media plan. Marcus stood at the lobby door, watching the parking lot. Victoria was asleep in the corner armchair, her hand still warm from holding mine an hour ago. Somewhere across town, Eleanor sat on the kitchen floor of the Sioux Villa, glass of water on the counter above her, phone screen up, showing my face saying the words she had just watched for the 4th time. Somewhere in a holding cell, Walter saw the video play once on the precinct television before an officer changed the channel. Somewhere at Diana's villa, Uncle Edgar sat across from her negotiating the post-Walter alignment while the video played on a tablet between them. I did not call anyone. I did not text anyone. I picked up my crutches, stood, and walked to the boardroom window. The city was still lit, still moving. 12 million people going about their evening, and 8 million of them had watched me say the words. I pressed my forehead against the cold glass. No relief, no triumph, no sadness. Just the sound of Marcus shifting his weight at the door and the low hum of Henry pouring the second whiskey. The family was done. The name was done. The debt was paid. 3 weeks after Walter's arrest, I sat in Aurora's boardroom with a laptop angled toward me and a filter running on the camera that turned my face into a 35-year-old man with sunglasses and a jawline I did not earn. Brother Zhang, that was the name on the screen. The name on the fake LinkedIn profile Maya had built with 12 years of fabricated history. The name Diana's people had been chasing for 2 weeks after they heard about Aurora's deprecated codebase through a leak I had planted myself. On the other end of the video call, Mr. Lawson adjusted his tie and smiled like a man who had already spent his commission. Diana sat behind him on a second screen, fur coat draped over her shoulders, arms crossed, watching. 800 million, I said. 4 installments over 2 weeks. That is the price. Mr. Lawson's smile tightened. My client was hoping for something closer to 500 million. I leaned back. Let the silence do the work. Then I tilted my head toward the camera and said, in the pitch-shifted voice Marcus had rigged for me, there are 6 companies waiting behind you, Mr. Lawson. If the number does not work, I will call the next one before lunch. Mr. Lawson excused himself. I heard Diana's voice through his muted mic, clipped and sharp. 2 minutes later, he came back. 800 million it is. He grinned like he had won something. Brother Zhang, I consider you a friend. I almost laughed. Almost. The man had just signed his client's bankruptcy with a fountain pen and a handshake, and he thought he was networking. Diana leaned into her camera. How soon can we have the codebase? First installment clears. I send the package within 48 hours. She nodded once. Mr. Lawson signed. Diana signed. I signed as Brother Zhang, kept my copy, and closed the laptop. 200 million hit Aurora's accounts that afternoon. The deprecated codebase I had shelved 6 months ago was worth maybe 12 million in parts. Diana just paid 200 for the first quarter of it. 3 more installments would follow over the next 2 weeks. 800 million total for technology that was already 18 months out of date. That evening, Ethan posted from his hospital bed, a public statement on every platform that mattered. 1 billion yuan. He bet 1 billion yuan that Crestline Tech would outsell Aurora's next product in their first 30 days. The words were bold, the font was large, and the confidence was the kind that only comes from never having lost anything real. The tweet went viral in 40 minutes. Comments piled up. Financial analysts weighed in. Influencers picked sides. I typed one line from my personal account. Accepted. Stocks moved. Comments exploded. I closed the app and poured a glass of water. A billion-yuan bet against a man selling you your own coffin. Some people really do not check the return address. Eleanor sat on the edge of the leather sofa with a manila folder in her lap. The private investigator stood by the door, coat still on, waiting to be dismissed. He had handed her the folder 11 minutes ago. She had not moved since page 1. Page 3 was the nanny's employment record. Page 5 was the wire transfer dates. Page 7 was the one that broke her. 5 million yuan, 2007. Walter had paid the nanny 5 million yuan to take baby Adrian into a mountain forest 200 kilometers from the city and leave him there. The receipt was signed. The nanny's bank statement was attached. 19 years of evidence, and Eleanor was reading it on a Tuesday afternoon in the house the man had built for her. Eleanor's hand went flat against the page. She read it again, then once more. Her breathing did not change. Her posture did not change. Something behind her eyes changed, and it would never change back. The investigator cleared his throat. She did not look up. He let himself out. Eleanor closed the folder, set it on the coffee table, picked up her car keys. Ethan was half conscious when Eleanor walked in. His eyes flickered open. The IV drip clicked steady. He saw her standing at the foot of the bed and his cracked lips moved. Mom. Eleanor sat on the edge of the bed. She looked at him the way someone looks at a photograph they have just realized is fake. 19 years of birthday cakes, 19 years of school pickups and doctor visits, and my son, my precious son. All of it built on a wire transfer and a nanny who took the money and walked a baby into the woods. You have been not my son, she said, quiet as a door closing, for 19 years. Then she put both hands on his neck and squeezed. Ethan's eyes went wide. His fingers clawed at her wrists, but the IV line tangled and his post-surgery body had nothing left. Eleanor squeezed harder. Her knuckles went white. His face went red. The heart monitor screamed. 2 nurses burst through the door. One grabbed Eleanor's shoulders. The other pried her fingers off Ethan's throat one by one. It took both of them. Eleanor was not a large woman, but grief had given her something that size could not. Eleanor stepped back. Her hands were shaking. She looked at them like they belonged to someone else. She walked out of the room without a word. Did not look back at Ethan gasping on the bed. Did not stop at the nurse's station. Drove to her lawyer. Filed for divorce that afternoon. That evening, she called Adrian's number. No answer. She called again and again and again. 7 times across 3 weeks, always routed to voicemail by Maya at Aurora's front desk. She left 3 messages. The first one was 4 minutes long. The second was 2. The third was just her name and a pause that lasted until the recording cut off. Adrian listened to none of them. Eleanor began baking cookies the next morning. The same recipe she had mailed to a 5-year-old boy at an orphanage once, a long time ago, with no return address. I texted Victoria on a Wednesday, asked if she was free Saturday. She replied in 4 seconds. I am. Saturday came warm and golden. The amusement park was packed with families and couples and a group of elementary school kids who looked like they had been set loose from a zoo. We started with cotton candy, Pink for her, blue for me. Then bumper cars, where a pack of 8-year-olds decided I was their primary target and rammed me from 4 directions, while Victoria laughed so hard she grabbed my arm to stay upright. I fought back for 2 rounds, nearly flipped the car once, then gave up and let them win. Her laugh was worth more than my dignity. We played the ring toss. I missed every throw. She landed 2 out of 3 and won a stuffed bear she tucked under her arm like a trophy. I told her I let her win. She told me I was a terrible liar. Hot dogs at a plastic table near the arcade. Her hair caught the late sun and turned almost copper at the edges. She had a dot of mustard on her chin and did not know it, and I did not tell her because it was the most human she had ever looked, and I wanted to remember it exactly like that. Then, the Ferris wheel. We climbed into the gondola as the sky went orange and pink. The wheel lifted us above the tree line, above the noise, above everything. At the top, the city stretched out below us, like a map someone had set on fire with sunset. Victoria looked at me. The wind moved her hair across her cheek. I waited, she said. 2 words. That was all she needed. 2 words that covered every silence since the day I had told her to wait. Every text I had not sent. Every door I had closed between us, because the war was not done yet. I kissed her. Her lips tasted like cotton candy and the evening air, and something I had not felt in either lifetime. The wheel kept turning, but neither of us reached for the bar. We stayed at the top through the next rotation, her hand in mine, the city burning gold beneath us, and for 30 seconds, I was not the man with the 6-month memory and the billion-yuan war. I was just a boy on a Ferris wheel with a girl who had waited. By the time we reached the bottom, she was my girlfriend. I did not say it. She did not ask. It was just true. 6 weeks later, Henry stood on Aurora's launch stage with a clicker in one hand and a grin so wide it probably violated company policy. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, and hit the button. The screen behind him lit up with 2 words, GPT 2.0. The press section erupted. Cameras flashed. Henry walked them through the demo like he had rehearsed it in his sleep, which he had. Draft a legal brief in 9 seconds. Write a keynote speech in 12. Summarize a 400-page report in under a minute. The demo ran flawless. The audience murmured. 2 venture capitalists in the front row stopped checking their phones. I watched from the wings. Maya was beside me, laptop open, refresh key wearing thin. 32 million downloads, she said, 3 hours after launch. Her voice was flat, but her eyes were not. I nodded. And Crestline? She pulled up the competitor dashboard. Crestline Tech had launched their product that morning, 1 day after ours, into a press cycle that had already moved on. 70,000 downloads. 2-star average rating. Users were calling it a knockoff. The stock dropped 81% by market close. Financial News ran the headlines side by side. Aurora's 32 million versus Crestline's 70,000. The deprecated codebase Diana had paid 800 million for was now powering a product the internet was calling last year's model with a new logo. Somewhere across the city, Diana's phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. He had introduced himself 2 weeks earlier as a project manager with inside access to Aurora's launch timeline. Told her a vendor payment of 2 million yuan would delay GPT 2.0 by 2 weeks. Give Crestline time to launch first. Diana wired the money to an overseas account within the hour. She did not verify the account. She did not call the number back. She was drowning, and Marcus handed her a rock shaped like a life raft. The launch happened anyway. Marcus split the 2 million with the operational fund and sent me a single text. Done. Ethan's 1 billion yuan bet was, by every public metric, lost. The internet reminded him of this every hour. I walked backstage and poured 2 glasses of water, handed one to Maya. Check the download counter every 30 seconds, she said to Henry through the earpiece, and shut up about it. Henry's grin did not shrink. It physically could not. 3 days after Crestline Tech's stock hit the floor, 2 black sedans pulled up to Aurora's front entrance. Marcus stood at the security desk. Maya sat at the reception counter, laptop open, posture relaxed. Diana walked in first, dark sunglasses, fur coat. Mr. Lawson half a step behind her. Ethan followed, jaw tight, fists at his sides. A family doctor trailed at the back, clutching a briefcase and looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. Diana stopped at the counter. "I need to see Brother Zhang, now." Maya looked up from her screen, picked up the phone, said 1 sentence into it, nodded. 7th floor, the founder's office. Elevator on your left. Diana blinked. The founder? Maya smiled the way a person smiles when they already know the punchline. "He is expecting you." The elevator doors opened. Diana walked down the hallway, Mr. Lawson behind her, Ethan behind him. I was behind my desk on the 7th floor. Catherine sat on the boardroom couch to my left, legs crossed, watching. Hannah sat beside her, thinner now, wearing a wig from the 3rd round of chemo, but she had insisted on being here. She said she wanted to see it. I did not argue. The office door was open. Diana stepped inside, saw the desk, saw the chair, saw me. Her hand went to her mouth. The sunglasses slid down her nose and she did not catch them. This cannot be true. I did not stand. Sit down, Diana. She did not sit. Ethan pushed past her, took 2 steps into the room, and stopped like he had walked into a wall. You, his voice cracked on the word. You scammed us. I sold you a code base, I said. You signed the contract. Mr. Lawson reviewed every clause. The product was delivered within 48 hours. The training technicians arrived on schedule. No scam, just a bad bet. Mr. Lawson, behind Ethan, had already pulled out his copy of the term sheet. His lips moved as he scanned the pages. He looked up at Diana and shook his head once. The contract was airtight. He had written it himself. Diana's fingers dug into the back of the visitor chair until her knuckles matched the leather. 800 million yuan. You took 800 million yuan from us and sold us garbage. I sold you exactly what the contract described. A code base, version 1.0, feature complete at time of sale. You chose not to audit it before signing. That is not fraud, Diana. That is due diligence you skipped because you were in a hurry to beat a company you did not understand. Ethan screamed. Not words, just sound. Then he lunged across the desk. I stood up, caught him by the collar with one hand. His feet left the ground for half a second. He swung at my face and missed by a foot. I walked him out of the office, down the 7th floor hallway, into the elevator, through the lobby. Every employee at every desk watched and said nothing. Marcus held the front door open. I pushed Ethan out onto the sidewalk. He stumbled off the curb and sat down hard on the concrete. His collar was torn. His face was red. The family doctor rushed out after him. I stood in the doorway and looked down at him. I will see you at my place on Saturday for the bet payment. Marcus closed the door, locked it. I turned around. Catherine was standing 6 feet behind me, arms at her sides. Hannah beside her, eyes wet, one hand on the back of a lobby chair for balance. Catherine looked at me for a long time. Then she said, quiet enough that only the 3 of us heard it, "You are quite something, brother." First time she ever called me that. Not Adrian, not him, brother. Hannah wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I never thought I would see this. I walked back to my office, closed the laptop, sat in the chair and looked at the city through the glass wall. Then I picked up my phone and called Eleanor. The line connected. I heard her breathing, the faint sound of an oven timer in the background, the soft clink of a baking tray being set down. I did not speak. She did not speak. I hung up. Ethan stood in the kitchen doorway for a full 10 seconds before Eleanor noticed him. She did not turn around. Her back stayed to him, both hands buried in a mound of dough on the marble counter, flour on her wrists, flour on the hem of her apron, a 90s ballad playing on the small radio beside the stove, the kind she used to hum when Adrian was 5, and she was still pretending to be his mother. 3 cookie trays already lined the counter behind her. She had been baking since dawn. Mom, his voice cracked on the word. Eleanor's hands kept moving. Press, fold, press. He stepped into the kitchen. His legs were still weak from surgery, and he caught himself on the counter edge. His knuckles went white. Mom, I need to talk to you. I was not thinking clearly. Diana manipulated me. I swear, I never wanted any of this to happen. Press, fold, press. He lowered himself to the kitchen floor. His knees hit the cold tile. Please, I need 600 million by Saturday. If I do not pay, Adrian will destroy me. Eleanor's hands stopped. The dough settled under her palms. Then they started again. You have not been my son, she said, over her shoulder, the way someone declines a delivery. Not for 19 years. Ethan crawled forward on his knees and grabbed the hem of her apron. Eleanor stepped to the left without looking down. His hand fell into the flour that had drifted to the floor. She wiped her palms on a towel, picked up a fresh ball of dough, and continued kneading. The radio played on. The oven timer ticked. She never turned around. He found Hannah at the dining table. She sat with her hands folded over a leather-bound Bible, her chemo wig slightly crooked, breakfast untouched in front of her. She had been praying every morning since the alley. Not for anything specific, not for healing, just praying, the way someone breathes when they have forgotten why. Ethan sat down across from her. The chair scraped against the hardwood. Hannah, please, you are my sister. She did not look up. Her fingers stayed laced over the cracked leather spine. We owe him nothing, she said, quiet, final. The way someone says something they have been rehearsing every morning for 3 weeks, between the first prayer and the untouched toast. Ethan opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. He sat there for 10 minutes. Nobody spoke. The clock on the wall ticked. Eleanor's kneading sounds drifted in from the kitchen like a second heartbeat. Eventually, he stood, pushed his chair in with both hands, and walked back to his room. His footsteps were the only sound in the house. Thursday, he drove to Capital City Medical to find Hannah at chemo. Her friend Beth met him at the ward entrance, crossed her arms. "No visitors," Beth said, and closed the door before he could answer. Friday morning, he drove to Catherine's office. The receptionist smiled the way receptionists smile at people who will never get past the lobby. "I am sorry, she is not available at the moment." Ethan sat in a leather chair by the window. The receptionist brought him water once. He watched the elevator doors open and close 11 times. Executives came and went. Couriers dropped off packages. A janitor mopped the floor around his feet without acknowledging him. Catherine never came down. 2 hours later, he stood, left the water untouched, and drove home. Friday night, Sarah's room. The curtains had been drawn for 3 weeks. The air smelled like unwashed laundry and cold takeout containers stacked on the nightstand. Sarah sat in her wheelchair, hair greasy, a blanket over the legs that had not healed since the reservoir. She had not left this room since the day Ethan carried her home from the hospital. Ethan knelt beside the wheelchair. His suit pants were wrinkled from 3 days of begging. "I need 400 million by tomorrow morning. If I cannot pay, Adrian owns me. He will make me kneel in front of cameras." Sarah's eyes filled. She did not argue. She did not ask how he had gotten into this. She did not tell him it was his fault. She just cried, quietly, the way someone cries when they have already decided to give everything they have left. She picked up her phone and called a streaming platform junior she had mentored 2 years ago. Her thumb shook against the screen. "I need 200 million, she said into the phone. Her voice was barely there. "Against my future streaming revenue. I know it is a lot." She closed her eyes. "He saved my life." The junior said yes. Sarah transferred 200 million of her own savings, every yuan she had. By midnight, 400 million sat in Ethan's account. It was not enough. He needed $1 billion. He was still 600 million short. She put the phone down on the armrest, stared at the dark window, did not say goodnight. Ethan stood, touched her shoulder once, and left. Sarah did not move. The lamp stayed on until morning, Sunday afternoon, the week before. The park behind my building was mostly empty. 2 kids on the seesaw arguing over whose turn it was. A woman reading on a bench with a thermos. No one on the swings. Victoria sat down on the left swing. I took the right one. The chains creaked under us. Late autumn light came through the bare branches in long gold slants and landed on the rubber mat beneath our feet. Somewhere past the tree line, a dog barked twice and stopped. She kicked her swing higher, once, twice. Her cardigan caught the air. "Are you ready?" she asked, not looking at me, looking at the sky past the crossbar. I watched the chains groan. "I am not sure." She pumped her legs once more, then let the swing carry her forward and back without effort. The seat tilted. The chain links clinked. She let the silence stay. "Whatever happens Saturday," she said. "I am here." I nodded. We sat on those swings for 30 minutes. She did not ask anything else. I did not offer anything. The kids left. The woman on the bench packed up her thermos and left. The light went down inch by inch until the shadows of the swings stretched all the way to the fence. The air turned cold enough to see our breath. I walked her home. At her gate, she turned. Her eyes were steady. I leaned forward and kissed her on the temple, held it for 2 seconds. She closed her eyes. Then she went inside, and the door clicked shut behind her. I stood there for another 5 seconds. Then I turned and walked back alone. Monday morning, Aurora's command room. Maya's 3 monitors glowed against the far wall. I sat at the head of the glass table, Maya at the controls, Marcus by the door with his earpiece already in, Catherine to my left, Hannah to my right, wig straight, hands folded, a bottle of water she would not touch. The Saturday operation went up on the largest screen. Route map, timeline, personnel, 9:30 departure from Aurora, 10 o'clock arrival at the Sioux Villa, 10:05, the doorway, 10:10, upstairs to Ethan. Photographers from the business press will be at the gate by 9:50, Maya said, dry, precise, like she was reading a shipping manifest. 2 of them, credentialed. They form on the staircase once we are inside. Catherine, quiet, studied the timeline. Do you want her at the door? She meant Eleanor. Yes, I said. Hannah shifted in her chair. The fabric of her sleeve brushed the table. Before or after you step inside? After. Nobody asked after what. The room was silent for 3 seconds. Maya typed. The timeline locked. The operation was signed off at noon. The week passed. I went to school every day. Ignored Sarah at the gate. Ignored Eleanor's daily voicemails. Ignored Walter's lawyer. On Saturday morning at 8, I put on the same black suit I wore to the birthday banquet 8 months ago. The one Marcus had dry cleaned and hung in my closet the week before. He had polished the shoes the night before. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw someone I did not recognize from a year ago. Good, that boy would have taken the cookies. On the drive over, I opened my phone and played all 7 of Eleanor's voicemails in order. The first was 4 minutes of apologies. The second was 2 minutes. The third was just her name and silence. The fourth was crying. The fifth was a recipe she remembered I liked. The sixth was more crying. The seventh was 3 words. I am sorry. I listened to everyone. Then I closed the phone and put it in my jacket pocket. By 9:30, I was in the lead sedan with Marcus at the wheel. 3 black sedans. Led, me, and Marcus. Middle, Grace, Catherine, Hannah. Trailing, 2 security guards from the firm Aurora retains. We drove through Beijing's Saturday morning traffic in formation. Nobody spoke. Marcus kept his eyes on the road and both hands on the wheel. I kept mine on the windshield. The city moved past us like scenery behind glass. 9:50. The neighborhood security gate opened. Maya had called ahead. 3 sedans rolled up the curving driveway one after another. The hedges were trimmed. The stone was swept. The Sioux Villa sat at the end of the drive the way it always had, wide and white and indifferent, like nothing had ever happened inside it. 2 photographers from the business press were already on the front lawn, credentials around their necks, cameras up. They started clicking the moment the first sedan's door opened. I stepped out. 40 flashes hit me at once. The morning sun came from the east and caught the lapel of my suit. I buttoned the second button. Marcus came around the hood and opened the rear door of the middle sedan. Catherine stepped out. Then Hannah, wig on, jaw set, then Grace, phone already recording. She held it steady at shoulder height. I am filming for the record, Grace said to no one in particular. We walked up the marble steps, 5 of us in a line. Marcus at my left shoulder, Catherine and Hannah behind me, Grace at the rear. The photographers repositioned on the lawn. The Sioux Villa staff watched from the second floor windows. The neighbors watched from theirs. Marcus signaled the security guard at the door. The guard pressed the bell. The chime rang through the villa. The same 2-note chime I heard 10,000 times growing up. The same one I heard the night I knelt in the snow outside this door and nobody answered. The door opened. Eleanor stood in the doorway. She wore an apron with a burnt flower stain on the left hip. Her hair was tied back with a plain elastic. She was wearing makeup for the first time in 3 weeks. Lipstick that did not quite match her skin. Foundation she had put on with shaking hands. In her arms, a polished silver tray. On the tray, 12 fresh baked cookies, chocolate chip. The kind she made once for my 5th birthday at the orphanage, 19 years ago, and mailed to me with no return address. The only birthday gift I ever received from this family. She saw me. Her lips parted. Her eyes moved from my face to the suit, to Marcus, to the cameras behind me. 3 seconds of nothing. The photographer's shutters clicked like insects. She lifted the tray, her arms barely steady. Please forgive Mommy. I did not respond. She lifted it higher, both hands trembling now, the cookies shifting on the silver surface. I made them this morning. My face did not move. My hands stayed at my sides. I looked at her the way you look at a door you are about to walk through. She lowered the tray to her waist. Her voice dropped to almost nothing, barely a whisper. Come home with me. The cameras kept clicking. Catherine behind my right shoulder, Hannah behind my left, Grace's phone at my shoulder, Marcus at the door, the photographers on the lawn, the neighbors at their windows, the security guards in the courtyard, everyone watching, no one breathing. I stepped forward. The tray was at my chest level. I did not take it. I did not push it away with my hand. I lifted my right foot, patent leather Oxford, polished by Marcus the night before, and I brought it down on the tray. The silver bent in the middle with a sound like a tin can crushed underfoot. The cookies broke under my heel. Crumbs and chocolate chips scattered across the white marble. 2 cookies rolled sideways and hit the doorframe. The tray clanged once against the stone and went quiet. Chocolate smeared under my sole in a dark streak across the silver. Eleanor's hands went to her mouth. No sound came out. I looked at her. Quiet, flat. The same expression she wore for 19 years when I was not worth turning around for. Belated affection is cheaper than grass. I stepped over the bent tray and walked past her into the foyer. My shoes left chocolate prints on the marble. I did not look back. Catherine followed. Her heels clicked once, twice, 3 times. Hannah followed. Slow, steady, chemo-tired, but upright. Grace followed last, phone still recording. Lens pointed at Eleanor's back. Eleanor dropped to her knees in the doorway. She did not reach for the cookies. She did not call my name. She did not scream or beg or grab my sleeve. She just knelt there, hands on her own thighs, head down. The morning light falling across her back through the open door. The same posture, the same marble, the same house, the same way I knelt in the snow, 19 years ago, outside this door, waiting for someone to let me in. Nobody let her up either. I stopped in the middle of the foyer, looked up at the staircase, the wide marble staircase that led to the bedrooms, to the study, to the life this family built on top of me. Ethan stood at the top, bathrobe, bare feet, hands on the railing. He had been watching the whole time. I did not raise my voice. I did not need to. The foyer carried sound the way marble always does. "Hannah, go get him." Hannah turned without a word and walked up the stairs. Her footsteps echoed on the marble. 1, 2, 3, each one louder than the silence it replaced. Behind me, 12 broken cookies lay on the floor. Eleanor knelt in the doorway with her head down. The cameras kept clicking. Grace kept filming. The morning kept going. And I stood in the foyer of the house that threw me away, with chocolate crumbs under my heel and a bent silver tray behind me, and waited for my sister to bring me the boy they chose instead. I heard Hannah's footsteps first, measured, tired, each one landing on the marble staircase with the discipline of someone running on fumes. Then heavier ones behind her, bare and uneven, dragging like a man walking to something he already knew the shape of. Ethan came around the bend of the staircase in a white terry bathrobe, hair pillow flat on the left side, sticking up on the right, bare feet on each step. His eyes found me in the foyer, and something in them went still the way water goes still, right before it freezes. He stopped at the bottom of the stairs. The foyer held 6 people, and not one of them was breathing loudly enough to hear. Catherine behind my left shoulder, Grace to my right, phone already at shoulder height, the red recording light blinking at the edge of my field of vision. Marcus at the door, Eleanor on her knees in the doorway behind me, where she had been since the cookies, the morning light falling on the back of her neck. Hannah stood 1 step behind Ethan on the staircase, her chemo wig slightly crooked, her face showing nothing at all. I did not raise my voice. I had not raised it once since walking into this house. "Walk forward." Ethan's throat moved. He walked 3 steps, stopped an arm's length from me. The bent silver tray was between us on the marble, cookies crushed into powder and chocolate ground into the grout lines. The scuff mark from my heel still visible in the center of the tray. My right heel was still on the edge of it. I lifted it and set it down on clean floor. Neil, his jaw worked sideways. His eyes went to Marcus at the door, measured the distance, measured the size of the man, came back to Catherine behind me, and then came back to my face. He shook his head once, small, almost invisible, but I saw it. I looked at Marcus. Marcus took 1 step forward, just one. The sole of his boot hit the marble, and the sound filled the foyer like a judge's gavel. Ethan's bare feet shifted backward 1/2 inch. Ethan dropped. Both knees hit the marble at the same time. The crushed cookies were under him. Crumbs pressed into the white terry cloth of his bathrobe, ground into his kneecaps. He put both palms flat on the floor. The posture was almost identical to the one I held in the snow 19 years ago outside this same house, except his hands were soft, and the floor was warm, and nobody was holding a riding crop. The 2 photographers on the front lawn leaned through the open doorway. Their cameras clicked in steady intervals. Grace's phone captured it all from 3 feet away. "There is a line you are going to say." My voice was flat. Court order flat. Reading a contract flat. "I will tell you the line. You will repeat it into that camera. The line is, Adrian's father. I was wrong. I am the son of a mistress." Silence. Then his chin came up. "No." I placed my right heel on the back of his right hand on the marble. The patent leather sat across his knuckles. I added half my weight. Not enough to break anything. Enough to compress the bones in his metacarpal until they started talking to each other. His fingers twitched. He tried to pull his hand free. I shifted my weight forward by 1 degree, then another. Catherine's voice came from behind me. Flat. No inflection. No warmth. No cruelty. Just the words. "Ethan, just say it." The foyer waited. Grace's phone recorded the silence. One of the photographers adjusted his lens. A clock somewhere in the house ticked 3 times. Ethan opened his mouth. "Adrian's father. I was wrong. I am the son of a mistress." He shouted it. Full volume, teeth clenched, spit landing on the marble between his hands. The sound bounced off the foyer ceiling and came back down like a physical thing. The 2 photographers heard it through the open door, and their cameras went off in rapid succession. Grace held her phone steady, not a single tremor. I lifted my heel off his hand. The knuckle marks were white, turning red. His fingers curled inward on the marble. 3 more times. His head snapped up. I looked at him the way you look at a contract that still needs 3 more signatures on the dotted line. He looked at the floor, at the cookies under his knees, at the bent silver tray his mother had carried to the door that morning, with 12 fresh-baked apologies on it. The second time was quieter. His voice cracked on the word mistress. The anger was still there, but something underneath it had started to give way, like a wall with water behind it. The The third time, he whispered it. His forehead dipped until it was 6 inches from the marble. The words came out like a prayer spoken in an empty church, every syllable distinct, every one of them dead. The fourth time was nothing, air shaped into the memory of words. A man reading his own death notice to a room that had already moved on. The cameras recorded it anyway. Grace filmed every repetition. The red light never blinked off. I told Ethan to stand. He stood, slowly. His knees had cookie crumbs pressed into the skin below the bathrobe hem. The robe hung open at the chest. His breathing was the loudest thing in the room, ragged and fast. The kind of breathing that comes after something has been taken from you that you did not know you were holding. I gestured toward the elevator at the back of the foyer. The doors opened. One of the photographers wheeled Sarah out in her wheelchair. Pajamas, hair in loose, greasy twin tails, eyes red and swollen from days of crying. She had been watching from the second-floor landing the whole time. Now she was here, 3 meters from the boy who had just screamed his confession into the marble. "Second forfeit," I said. Ethan looked at me, one slap across her face. The foyer went quiet in a different way, not the held breath quiet of the first beat. This was the quiet of a room that did not want to exist anymore. Even the photographer's cameras went still. Sarah's hands tightened on the armrests of her wheelchair, but she did not speak. She did not look at me. She looked at Ethan. Ethan turned to Sarah. He walked to her wheelchair, each step slow. He knelt beside it, his bathrobe pooling on the marble, and lifted his right hand. The slap landed soft, barely a touch, the way you pat a child's cheek to see if they are sleeping. Harder. He looked at me over his shoulder. His jaw was locked. His hand was shaking. I did not repeat myself. I did not need to. Ethan turned back to Sarah. His hand came up. The second slap cracked across the foyer like a branch snapping. Her head tilted to the left. A red print bloomed on her cheek, bright against the pale skin. She did not flinch. She did not reach up to touch it. She did not cry. She stared straight ahead at nothing the way someone stares at a wall when the last thing holding them up has just been kicked out from under them. Ethan's hand dropped to his side. He stayed kneeling beside the wheelchair. His mouth was open, but nothing was coming out of it. I looked at Marcus. 2 words. Tell her. Marcus stepped forward, 1 meter from Sarah's wheelchair. He looked at her the way someone looks at a photograph they have been carrying in their wallet for 15 years and never showed anyone. His voice dropped. Everything about it was different from the rest of the room. Softer, careful, like he was handling glass that would shatter if he spoke too fast. The only gentleness this foyer had seen all morning. I was at the reservoir that day. I was 6. My sister was 3. You fell off the dock. I pulled you out. He paused. The pause was not for drama. It was because the next sentence cost him something. I ran because I thought your family would blame me. I was just an orphan boy. Sarah's eyes moved from the wall to his face, slowly, the way someone turns toward a sound they were not expecting to hear in this lifetime. Marcus held her gaze. Then he finished. Ethan took the credit when your nanny found you. The room held its breath. Every person in it, every camera, every patch of morning sunlight on the marble, all of it stopped and waited for what came next. Sarah's mouth opened. One sentence, broken at every seam. "It was you?" Marcus nodded. Once. Sarah's hand went to her own cheek, the left one, the one with the red print from the slap. The slap delivered by the brother she had defended for 15 years. The brother she had given 400 million yuan 40 hours ago because she believed he had saved her life at that reservoir when she was 4 years old. The brother who had taken a 6-year-old orphan boy's rescue and worn it like a medal since before she could form a lasting memory. Her fingers pressed against the mark. Her eyes closed. They did not open again. Ethan collapsed sideways onto the marble beside her chair. His bathrobe pooled around him on the floor. Cookie crumbs from his knees scattered onto the marble. He curled inward. He did not get up. The foyer held its silence like a courtroom after the verdict. Grace stepped forward and handed me her phone. Her voice was quiet, almost clinical. The voice of someone handing over a finished document. Recording saved. I took the phone, opened the file, scrubbed the timeline to the second repetition, the one where Ethan's voice cracked on the word mistress. Watched it once. The white bathrobe, the cookie crumbs on his knees, the red light of Grace's camera steady in the corner of the frame, his mouth forming the words he would never take back. I closed the file, put the phone in my coat pocket. I looked around the foyer one last time. Hannah and Catherine stood to my left. Hannah's eyes were down. Catherine's were straight ahead. Grace was to my right, her arm at her side now. The recording finished. Behind me, at the back of the foyer near the elevator, Sarah sat in her wheelchair with her eyes closed and Ethan on the marble beside her. The crushed cookies and the bent silver tray and the scuff mark from my heel sat between them and the front door like a border that nobody was going to cross. And Eleanor, in the doorway, on her knees. Same posture as when I stepped on the tray. Same apron. Same burnt flour stain on the left hip. She had not moved. She had not spoken a single word since the cookies hit the floor. The morning light came through the open door behind her and lit her from the back so that her face was in shadow, but her outline was sharp. She looked like a photograph of something that had already happened a long time ago. I walked toward the door. The silver tray was between me and the threshold. I stepped over it. My heel did not touch it this time. Not the tray, not the crumbs, not the chocolate. I cleared it by an inch, clean, deliberate, and set my foot down on the marble on the other side. I stopped next to Eleanor, did not look down, said nothing. One breath came out of her, slow. The sound a building makes when it settles at night. That was all. I stepped over the threshold and onto the marble of the front steps. The morning air hit my face. Beijing in late autumn, Saturday. The sun sat about a hand's width above the horizon, and the light came sideways across the driveway, turning everything gold and long-shadowed. The two photographers were already at the bottom of the steps, packing their cameras into black cases, their job finished. 3 black sedans waited in the curving driveway, engines running, exhaust rising in the cold morning air and dissolving. Catherine walked behind me, then Hannah, then Grace. The procession reformed at the bottom of the marble steps without anyone saying a word. I got in the back of the lead sedan. Marcus closed my door. The sound was solid, final. He walked around the hood and got in the driver's seat. His hands found the wheel. He did not say anything. He did not need to. The other 2 sedans pulled in behind us. The gate of the community opened. The cars rolled through into the city. Beyond the gate, Beijing moved the way it always moves on a Saturday morning. Taxis and delivery trucks and commuters on their way to the weekend. None of them looked twice at 3 black sedans turning onto the boulevard. None of them knew what had just happened inside a marble foyer 3 blocks behind them. Marcus drove. I sat in the back seat and watched the buildings pass. The gated community wall receded in the side mirror, then the neighborhood, then the boulevard trees. I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out Grace's phone, opened the recording one more time, set the volume to half. The audio came through the car's speakers, low and clear. Ethan's voice shouting the line, the first time angry, the second time cracking, the third time a whisper, the fourth time nothing. I listened to the second repetition once, the one where his voice broke on the word mistress and the marble seemed to swallow the rest of the sentence. I watched the white bathrobe and the cookie crumbs and the red camera light in the corner of the frame, closed the file, dropped the phone back into my pocket, looked out the window. The Sioux Villa was half a block behind us. The gate was already closed. The driveway was already empty. Somewhere in there, Eleanor was still on her knees in the doorway. Ethan was still on the marble. Sarah's eyes were still closed. The cookies were still on the floor. All of it behind me now. All of it on a phone in my coat pocket in a file I would listen to one more time when I got home, and then never again. The car turned onto the highway. Marcus kept his hands at 10 and 2. The sun cleared the buildings to the east, and the highway opened up ahead of us, 4 lanes wide, heading north.